Chapter 34. It's no wonder that Kushina questioned Dustless. After all, it takes more than 4 days to travel from Konoha to the Sands base, which means that Dustless only took half a day to annihilate the supply force protected by the Ichibi. In fact, Jiraiya also had doubts about Dustless's answer, but since they are all teammates, it's hard to say. Although he has great confidence in Dustless and his Mangekyo, annihilating hundreds of elite ninjas and Jinchuriki in half a day is obviously not scientific. Uchiha Dustless, did you just say that you annihilated the supply force of the sand in half a day? Trying to suppress the anger in her heart, Kushina's beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Do you think you're a god? Even if the Hokage himself went out, it would be impossible to annihilate such a force in half a day. Maybe he would even get beaten up by the other side. Jinchuriki is a real Kage tier ninja, and there are dozens of elite ninjas. You said that you annihilated them in half a day? Who would believe it? Indeed, Dustless looked at Kushina's eyes and then directly ignored her and said in an extremely indifferent tone. He didn't understand what was going on with this woman. Why was she deliberately targeting him? Is it because I stole Minato's script? Is that why she's targeting me? Noticing that Uzumaki Kushina was looking at him more and more unkindly, Dust secretly thought about it and immediately shook his head. Uzumaki Kushina's character was not that kind of narrow-minded person. He and Minato didn't have any competitive relationship. The two of them were completely different existences. Kakaka. Seeing that Dustless still admitted that he annihilated the supply force of the sand, Kushina suddenly became furious, and her seemingly soft little hand directly smashed the table into pieces and asked coldly, Dustless Uchiha, I admit that you are very strong, but the people here are not 3-year-old children. Don't you think that lies are ridiculous? Kushina sneered at Dustless's expressionless face. The only ones who could defeat the supply force of the sand in half a day are Hashirama and Madara. There is no Uchiha Dustless. So that's how it is. Dust looked at Uzumaki Kushina with a strange expression. He finally understood what she meant and said lightly, You mean to say that the annihilation of the sand supply army was a scam, and it was actually for my own merits? Humph. Hearing this, Kushina just snorted. Although she didn't say anything, there was no doubt that this was what she meant. The Manjikyu Sharingan is terrifying, but to defeat a Jinchuriki, using Genjutsu is useless because the bijou inside the Jinchuriki can interfere with his chakra, and Genjutsu is useless. Kushina coldly looked at Dustless. Why does she know that Genjutsu is useless against the Jinchuriki? Because she is the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. Although she hasn't seen the power of the Manjikyu Sharingan with her own eyes, she is still an Uzumaki. Even if the Uzumaki clan has completely declined, she is still a descendant of the Six Paths, and even if she doesn't know everything about this distant relative, she still has a basic understanding of him. At least in Kushina's eyes, Dustless shouldn't be so strong. Unless you prove your strength. Kushina's tone suddenly changed, and her beautiful eyes stared at Dustless, and she said, Unless you have the strength to defeat me, then you can't do it. Ha! Hearing this, Dustless directly laughed and looked at Kushina with contempt, as if he was looking at a clown. What's so funny? Seeing this, Kushina was instantly angry, and her eyes were burning with anger. She originally wanted to give Dustless a way out, but she didn't expect the latter to be so insensible and make fun of her. Defeating you doesn't mean anything. As long as I defeat you, I have the strength to defeat a bijou. Don't you think your question is too ridiculous and naive? Uzumaki Kushina? Dustless said sarcastically. Although Kushina's chakra is scary, but what does it mean? You and I are not in the same dimension. Looking at Kushina faintly, Dustless's calm and powerful voice sounded, and his voice was full of confidence. It's not that Dustless is exaggerating. Although Kushina's strength is not bad, she's still young, and she hasn't reached the late stage yet. Defeating her now is really not difficult for Dustless. Of course, the premise is that she doesn't use the power of the Kyuubi. Although using the power of the Kyuubi is a bit difficult for Dustless, it's really not difficult to defeat her. Are you kidding me? Hearing this, Uzumaki Kushina was furious. She was mocked by Wuchen for not being in the same dimension as her, which was tantamount to a direct slap in her face. She didn't know when, but all kinds of sharp ninja weapons appeared in her hands, and she immediately flashed behind Dustless and tightly choked his neck. And in the blink of an eye, she subdued Dustless. You're just SOSO. Kushina was proud, and when she was about to despise Dustless for overestimating himself, she suddenly felt a burning sensation on her hand, and she subconsciously retracted her hand. Dustless's body was covered with a golden luster, and after a while, his whole figure disappeared. When he reappeared, he was holding the Kushina's sword, and the sharp blade was pointed at Kushina's throat, and his indifferent little face was full of indifference, and his eyes were emotionless. I'm right. You and I are not in the same dimension, and I don't like to joke. Chapter 35. You want to play tricks with me? Kid, you're still miles away from that. Let's see how I'll deal with you today. Dustless's eyes darted around, his entire being radiating a cunning aura. He wasn't the one who had tricked Summerstriped. Since the kid had taken the initiative to attack, Dustless had to return the favor. Cough, cough, cough. After my initial assessment, I'm sorry to say that this kid is probably crippled. Dustless's words sent them straight to hell. Be it Winter Striped or Huang Lingyin, their faces paled. Bullsh asterisk T, you quack. I'm perfectly fine. Since when am I crippled? Summer Striped cursed inwardly. How could he treat a patient with this level of skill? This was utter nonsense. You must have a way, right? I spent so much money to invite you here. You can't just leave like nothing happened. Huang Lingyin rushed to Dustless, her voice laced with tears. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Of course, of course. Dustless nodded, but he was cursing inwardly. Damn Summer Striped. Why are so many girls interested in him? It's like a flower stuck in cow dung. No, a flower stuck in dog dung. Based on my estimation, Xia is in a vegetative state right now. Dustless spoke slowly. It's not impossible to wake him up, but it's extremely difficult. It's as difficult as ascending to heaven. As you know, a vegetative state isn't much different from a dead person, so we need to use stimulation therapy. What do you plan to do? Winter Striped heaved a sigh of relief. Dustless's calm demeanor suggested that he had a solution. It's simple. If you want to wake him up, the best way is to stimulate him mentally. Dustless smiled strangely. As you know, Summer hates me the most, so we need to fight poison with poison. I'm the best person to deal with him. Dustless's eyes fell on Millennium Weaver. With a calm smile, he whispered to her, "Let's do something interesting in this room. Who knows? Maybe we'll wake him up." Interesting things? Vega Thousand Winter looked at Dustless suspiciously. What was this guy talking about? Seeing his evil grin, Weaver Thousand Winter suddenly had a bad premonition, and his whole body shivered. Of course it's about the body. You're mine from now on, little Qiandong. Dustless said truthfully. Only an idiot would let go of such a good opportunity that Summer Vega had created for him. You're just messing around. Thousand Winter Weaver's face turned red. Dustless was clearly taking advantage of the situation. Ka 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 ka. At this moment, the lying Summer of Weaving suddenly swayed. Looking at his pale cheeks, it was now a patch of red. Did you see that? My method worked, didn't it? We haven't tried it yet, and Xia's face is already red with anger. If we really try it, he will definitely be able to regain consciousness by then. Wuchen struck while the iron was hot and tried his best to bluff. Really? Doubt flashed in Thousand Winter Weaver's eyes. She looked at the red-faced Summer Vega, who had yet to wake up. He seemed to have been provoked. If it doesn't work, I'm willing to hand over his head to you. Dustless made a solemn vow. His words completely crushed Thousand Winter Weaver's last line of defense. Fine, let's try it. Thousand Winter Weaver gritted her teeth and finally agreed with a red face. She and Dustless had already done some things in the past anyway. She just hadn't broken through the final barrier yet. That's good. Dustless smiled proudly. He then turned to Cecilia and Huang Lingyin. You two should leave. It's not appropriate for us to be seen doing that kind of thing. Not appropriate, my ass. Dustless, you bastard. How dare you take advantage of my misfortune? I'll kill you today. The motionless Summer of Weaving suddenly jumped up, as if he was possessed by a wolf or a tiger. He pointed at Wu Chun and scolded, "You quack, I'm fine. You're the one in a vegetative state. You actually want to take advantage of my sister. Shameless scum. After scolding Dustless, Summer Vega revealed a smug smile. He had exposed this despicable man's dirty plan. Everyone would definitely see him in a new light. "Oh, you're finally awake. Aren't you tired of pretending?" Dustless let go of Vega and looked at Huang Lingyin. "Mission accomplished. I'm going back to sleep. Let's meet your parents some other day." Lingyin. "Meet my parents?" Summer Vega was taken aback. What did that mean? Lingyin paid a huge price to get Dustless Sama's help. She now belongs to Dustless Sama. It's all thanks to you. Cecilia took the opportunity to add salt to the wound. This sentence couldn't be any simpler. In order to get Dustless's help, she had sacrificed herself. The funny thing was that Summer Vega didn't have any illness at all. It was all an act by the kid. "Idiot, intelligence is a good thing. Go home and practice before you play with me." Casting a glance at Weaver Spot Xia, Dustless left. A burst of carefree laughter reverberated in the entire space. Tonight's self-written and self-directed drama was very exciting. Vega, Summer, I'll hate you forever. Huang Lingyin couldn't hold back her tears any longer. She left in tears. What's going on, Sister Thousand East? Summer Vega stared blankly at Thousand East. It was ridiculous. You idiot. Slap. A palm print appeared on Summer Vega's face. Thousand East had given him a merciless slap. Chapter 36. Ha ha. Do you have enough brains? I know you're strong, but this little girl is still in my hands. I'll kill her if she tries anything funny. Ernst was not afraid of Dustless's killing intent. Even though he knew this guy was unfathomably strong, he had an advantage, a hostage. Thinking of this, Ernst could not help but admire his own resourcefulness. Scum. Pomelo's face was red as she shouted angrily. The ignorant are fearless, Dustless sighed. His tone was full of pity as he said, Your celestial race was recently destroyed. Only a few escaped. Do you know who did it? How do you know about this? Ernst looked at Dustless in shock. As a member of the celestial race, he naturally knew that the celestial race was recently destroyed and suffered heavy losses. This race was almost wiped out. Only a few managed to survive. Thinking of the mastermind behind this, Ernst felt his scalp go numb. Even the big shots in the celestial realm found it difficult to deal with such a strong enemy, let alone him. Are you afraid of him? Dustless asked again with a teasing look on his face. Nonsense. Who wouldn't be afraid of such an existence? Ernst snorted coldly. Fortunately, he was not in the celestial realm. Otherwise, he would definitely be dead. Ha ha ha. Dustless's smile grew wider as he said, Actually, I'm the culprit behind the destruction of the celestial race. Do you believe me? Believe my ass. Ernst snorted disdainfully. You're very strong, but you're still lacking if you want to destroy our celestial race. A mere human could destroy the entire celestial race? He would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. But he's the one who destroyed the celestial race. A cold and pleasant voice sounded, intoxicating like a fragrant wind. Ernst was overjoyed. He quickly turned around and said in surprise, Lady Freya, it's really you. This person beside you is, looking at Rafa and Irene, Ernest seemed to know her as well. Impossible. You should have been imprisoned. Who let you out? He exclaimed in shock. Of course it's me. I'm also the one who destroyed the Protoss. Dustless's voice rang out again. Ernst's face twitched. Kneel down and apologize, Onis. Resisting him will only lead to destruction. Hasegawa coldly said. This guy had eyes but couldn't see. So who could he blame? Was it really you who destroyed the gods in heaven? Ernst's voice trembled. He did not expect this smiling young man to be so terrifying. Did he destroy the heaven realm alone? Just thinking about it made him feel a chill run down his spine. Countless great figures had died at the hands of Dustless, let alone him. Don't need to lie to you, kid? Dustless asked and pointed at Irene. He smirked and said, Come, call me master. Hearing this, Rafa and Irene's expression slightly changed. Looking at Dustless's unquestionable expression, they could only helplessly call out, "Greetings, master." That soft voice made one's body go limp. Damn it, am I dreaming? Aeones slapped himself in the face. The burning pain told him that this was not a dream. Then, he looked at Rafa Irene in disbelief and exclaimed, "You are also one of the 10 gods of the celestial realm. Why did you submit to this guy?" However, Irene did not even look at him. She seemed to be disdainful and directly ignored him. Although they were all Protoss, there were still differences between the nobility and the lowly. "Ernst, why aren't you letting her go?" Hasegawa coldly shouted. "I. Ernst hesitated. He wanted to let her go, but also did not want to. If he let her go, what if Dustless turned hostile? "I've given you a chance," a gloomy voice came from behind. It was as cruel as a poisonous snake. Ernst quickly looked back. It was Dustless who had appeared out of nowhere. What made Ernst despair the most was that a golden sword was floating above his head. "Wait, I still have something to say. Pucci." Before Ernst could finish his words, the Kusanagi sword slashed down. His body was split into 2 halves on the spot. A large amount of blood splattered out. Amaterasu. The smell of blood in the air was really unpleasant. Then a black flame fell on Ernst's body and burned him into nothingness in a short time. "You're really cold, Hasegawa." Dustless looked at the unmoved Nagayakawa and Rafa Irene. The 2 of them didn't even look at Eunice. Should I sympathize with this guy? He was originally monitoring me. He deserved to die. Hasegawa's face was ruthless, not to mention that she had already pleaded for Ernst. At the same time, her tone had a trace of arrogance. "Although we are of the same race, there are differences between Protoss." Hearing this, Dustless shrugged. This was true. After all, she was also one of the 10 gods. What the hell was Ernst? He was just a mere scum. "By the way, why did you suddenly come?" Looking at the 2 women, Dustless suddenly asked. He did not inform them to come, and there was no need for them to come. "After you left, someone came to take Pyrolite to the demon realm." Hasegawa and Irene looked at each other and said slowly, "Those guys are not good people. Reject them all. The demon realm is a place that eats people without spitting out the bones. Pyrolite is too simple and not suitable for that place." Dustless said coldly. "Unfortunately, that person claimed to be Pyrolite's uncle. His name is Ramses. Even if we stop him, Pyrolite will meet him." Hasegawa shrugged. This kind of thing could not be stopped at all. After all, the 2 sides were related by blood. Troublesome things are piling up one after another. Dustless rubbed his eyes. Then his face showed a touch of coldness. "Then let's go to the demon realm to take a look. Maybe we can meet that stinking brat Dongsheng Ringing." Dongsheng Ringing's whereabouts were not found in the heavenly realm or the human world. Where else could this brat go except to the demon realm? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 37. At this moment, an uninvited guest had arrived at Dustless's house. The newcomer was a woman. She was graceful and beautiful, and her appearance was somewhat similar to Wan Leah and her mother, Sheila. It was worth mentioning that this woman was wearing a maid's uniform. Sister Lucia. When Wan Leah saw the maid, she was slightly surprised. She seemed to have thought of something. "Master Chung is now Master's servant. You'd better not take her away, especially when you don't even greet me." "Master?" Hearing Wan Leah's address, Lucia's big purple eyes showed a trace of displeasure. "Is that guy worth you being so humble?" "Yes, he is. Even I'm tempted by that guy." Wan Leah's mother, Shara, seemed to have come out of a different dimension. She suddenly stood in front of Lucia and licked her lips. Her eyes were shining. "Dustless is very strong, even in that aspect. He fought with Chung for more than 10 hours and knocked her out. His stamina is ridiculously strong, isn't it? If it were anyone else, they would have been too ashamed to show their faces. But to Wan Leah, her mother Shara, and Lucia, the 3 of them were as calm as still water. They did not feel uncomfortable at all, as if it was a common thing. I don't understand what's so special about that dustless guy. This time, I'm only here to pass on Lord Ramses's order. We must take Chengse away. Lucia's expression was serious, and her tone was unquestionable. It was as if anyone who said no was her enemy. This forceful attitude made Wan Leah and Shara frown. They had been together for some time, and they knew that Dustless was amenable to coaxing, but not coercion. Lucia's tone was so firm that Dustless would be dissatisfied sooner or later. Coming to my territory and causing trouble. If it was Ramses himself, it would be fine. But you were just a servant. Where did you get the courage? Dustless had not arrived yet, but his unhappy voice rang in their ears. In the distance, a ray of divine light streaked across the sky and rushed toward them. You're here, just in time. Lucia raised her eyebrows. She was curious about Dustless, whom her sister Wan Leah and mother Shara admired. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Light condensed in the room as Dustless strolled out. Photons floated around him, and under the contrast of the golden light, he looked like an inviolable god. You are Dustless, Chengse Kuan's master? Lucia was absent-minded for a moment, but when she recalled Dustless's strength, she respectfully said, Lord Ramses hopes that Chenge's Kodo will go to the demon realm. In the end, it was still a world where the strong ruled. Strength determined everything. Hearing this, Dustless only swept a few glances at Lucia and calmly inquired, Since he wants to take Hui to the demon realm, why doesn't he come himself? Sending a servant to deliver a message. Who are you looking down on? Displeasure flashed in Lucia's eyes. Wasn't this implying that she wasn't qualified? Lord Ramses still has to guard against Demon King Leohart. How can he leave the demon realm at will? And what does this have to do with me? Dustless rudely interrupted Lucia and unreasonably said, I don't have a good impression of that smelly old man. As his voice fell, Dustless glanced at Shara intentionally or unintentionally. Shara and Ramses had given birth to Wan Leah, so the relationship between them was self-evident. He thought that Shara would be angry, or even angry, but her delicate face was calm. She just looked with interest at how the gloomy Lucia would deal with Dustless. Lucia's beautiful eyes flickered with a faint cold light. She looked at Dustless for a moment, and then expressionlessly asked, Who are you calling a smelly old man? I didn't hear you clearly. Please repeat it, Your Excellency. Boom, boom, boom. Lucia burst out with a large-scale magic fluctuation, and a magic light flashing behind her almost materialized. She glared at Dustless with great hostility and coldly said, I forgot to tell you, Lord Ramses is Huey's uncle. How can an outsider like you interfere with their meeting? Family? The sneer on Dustless's face became thicker, and it was as cold as ice. He turned a deaf ear to the pressure released by Lucia and ignored it as if it were air. He contemptuously said, Family? Do you understand the true meaning of family? When Hui was being hunted down, why didn't that uncle of hers come to help? Don't find excuses for me. If you really treat Hui as your family, you should understand that nothing in this world is more important than family. Now that I've killed Zukiel, Ramses has jumped out. Bah! Dustless sneered and scoffed at Ramses. That old man invited Hui to the demon realm to awaken her demon king power. Although the intention was good, it would definitely cause the strong dissatisfaction of the current demon king, Leonhart. It was tantamount to directly pushing Hui to the front, and Leonhart would definitely not let her go. With Ramses's current strength, it was impossible to protect Hui. In a way, it was tantamount to directly pushing Chung Setsuya into the fire pit. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At this moment, the space suddenly trembled and collapsed. The irregular crack quickly expanded, and endless purple light erupted from it. It was like a space door, and a burly and old figure walked out of it. Dustless squinted and carefully looked at the person in front of him. Ramses? The red-haired old man gently nodded and looked at Luoyu with a complicated expression and a trace of shame. As Dustless said, nothing in this world was more important than family, but when Hui was in danger, he had been busy with other things. I'm sorry. After a moment of silence, Ramses finally lowered his head in shame. You don't need to apologize to me. You got the wrong person, so you should apologize to me. Dustless's tone softened. He knew that Ramses was in a difficult position, and the old man's attitude was sincere, so his disgust was reduced a lot. Chapter 38. Hearing this, Dustless's expression was stiff. He was silent for a long time, and his expression was calm and collected. This made Ariella extremely surprised. If a normal person were to hear of such a crazy plan against them, they would be scared witless, or at least pale with fright. But Dustless, sounds interesting. No idea how long had passed either. Dustless responded with a sentence. Interesting. Ariella dug her ears, thinking that she had misheard. She looked at Dustless speechlessly and said, "Did you not hear what I said? Someone wants to use your essence for an experiment. And now you're telling me that it's interesting? Are you crazy? What's so strange about this? In the past, it's not like I haven't encountered this kind of thing before." Dustless's expression did not change, and he spoke naturally. In those clear eyes, there was an eternal indifference brewing. This pair of eyes, this pair of bright and wise eyes, did not seem to care about anything. I think you've given up." Ariella snorted in disdain. In her opinion, Dustless had already given up because this guy was already under her control. Perhaps he had already let go of his stubbornness. So what if he was dissatisfied? He could not even get past her. "Those guys don't dare to face me directly, so they used you, the A-spy." Dustless changed the topic and looked at Ariella seriously and reminded her, "Don't tell me you didn't see it. Those guys have already abandoned you, and you're still willing to work for them? My business is not for you to interfere." Ariella replied coldly, but there was a clear trace of pain in her eyes. Hee, looks like you're still not satisfied." Dustless smiled faintly. "If you're not satisfied, why don't you fight against your own fate? Even an ant has the right to struggle. I'm going to fight against Knifer alone? You must be kidding me." Ariella's tone revealed a trace of fear, as if she was afraid of Knifer's organization. She bitterly mocked herself. They're a military organization, and I'm alone. Even if I'm dissatisfied, what can I do? In this world, there are always people who are sacrificed as tools. And Ariella belonged to the category of tools. No, I don't agree with this." Dustless shook his finger, his whole body exuding an aura of vicissitudes, and only heard him speak like an old man. "Kid, it's okay to be looked down upon by others. You're still young, and you still have a long way to go in the future. Even if you lose your face now, you can still earn it back in the future. No matter what, you have to remember that if you look down on yourself, your future will definitely be filled with darkness." Hearing this, Allegra fell silent. His brows furrowed and relaxed at times. It sounded like there was some truth in his words. Stop trying to bewitch me." After a moment of silence, a cold light flashed across her face, and Ariella leaned forward, directly lying on Dustless's body, her soft hand covering Dustless's mouth to prevent him from continuing to talk. She coldly said, "You can't even protect yourself, and you still have the mood to bewitch me? It's a waste of talent if you don't become a speaker." Gotcha. Without hesitation, Eli tore Wu Chen's clothes apart. Wu Chen's well-proportioned body was revealed. Eli was stunned by Wu Chen's appearance. You look skinny and weak, but your body is amazing." Ariella looked at Dustless's abdomen with infatuation, nodding her head in praise as she looked at the 8-pack abs on Dustless's abdomen. These abs seemed to have been purposely made and were embedded on Dustless's body, not too big nor too small, very standard. Although you're young, your heart is actually very barbaric. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In his memory, the number of times a woman tore his clothes apart could be counted on one hand. Moreover, this was obviously a F** king child, not a woman. Here's the next part. Ariella's pair of beautiful eyes swept across Dustless's lower body, and her hands gradually moved over. Let's stop here. Dustless's cold voice sounded, and Ariella laughed coldly, not taking it seriously. You're already drugged, and you're still trying to act tough? Therefore, without any hesitation, her two small hands continued to move towards Dustless's waist. Because he was wearing sweatpants, As long as she gently untied the belt around his waist, his pants could be taken off. But bang! Suddenly, a huge force landed on Uriella's shoulder, and she violently spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body lying on Dustless's body also flew backwards. "You didn't listen to me, you ungrateful woman." Dustless suddenly stood up. His gaze was stern, and his expression was resolute. He didn't look like he was drugged at all. He turned around and walked towards the wardrobe in the other bedroom. It seemed like he was going to change his clothes. How is this possible? Uriella wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and looked at Dustless, who was walking as if he was flying. She was completely stunned. Could it be that this guy was faking it all along? "Uriella, what did you do to Master Dustless?" At the same time, Elise also rushed in, her beautiful eyes filled with anger. This friend of hers, whom she trusted, actually dared to lay her hands on Dustless? Uriella's face twitched, as if she couldn't explain, so she shut her mouth. There is no point in explaining to Elise, as she was Dustless's errand boy. "I say, little girl, how about we make a deal?" In just a few seconds, Wu Chan changed into a new shirt and held a goblet in his hand. There was a glass of juice in it. A deal. Uriella, who was originally in despair, was reinvigorated when she heard these two words. She asked, "What kind of deal?" "You go and tell those people from Nightfall that we've got what we want." Wu Chen's face was ferocious. He said with a murderous look, "Then I'll kill them." "You want me to be a traitor?" Uriella's expression was extremely ugly. Nightfall's method of dealing with traitors was quite cruel. "That's right." Dustless nodded and said expressionlessly, "You can refuse, but let me tell you, if you refuse, you will die immediately. If you're willing to listen to me, I can guarantee your life." Uriella's expression was difficult, and she was hesitant. She didn't want to die, and, at the same time, she didn't want to be a traitor. However, after thinking about it, it seemed that there was no plan that could satisfy both sides. If she refused, Dustless would die immediately. If she became a traitor, although she would be on Nightfall's kill list, she would also be protected by Dustless, so Master Dustless. After thinking for a while, Uriella knelt on one knee without hesitation to show her loyalty. Chapter 39. Not bad. Only a woman like her would be likable. Seeing this, Dustless smiled proudly and gave her an admiring look. He felt a sense of accomplishment. Although he was forced to do this, Dustless only cared about the end result. He did not care about the process. To be able to force a mortal enemy to become his follower, wasn't that something to be proud of? You go and inform those guys in Nifling that they'll come and make a deal in 3 days. Let me see which idiot is coming to die. Dustless said gloomily. His eyes were flashing with scarlet light. When he spoke, the air was filled with the thick smell of blood. I understand. Alila nodded with a pale face. Her body was trembling unnaturally. Even if he did not deliberately target her, Alila's body was still instinctively afraid. This was an innate fear, just like the invisible restraint of higher life forms towards lower life forms. There was always a lingering fear. Now she finally understood Dustless's strength. He was just playing with her. If he really wanted to kill her, he would not even have to lift a finger. He could kill her with just a thought. "All right, you may leave." Dustless's expression returned to normal, and his tone was gentle. Although he had killed countless people, Dustless had always used a combination of kindness and power to deal with his own people. When it was time to be tough, he would be tough, and when it was time to be gentle, he would use gentle means. Alila did not dare to stay any longer. She bowed deeply and left quietly with a fearful expression. "Master Dustless, I did not expect this to happen. It's all my fault. I'm very sorry." Elise lowered her head in shame. Although Dustless was fine, she was the one who introduced Alila. He did not do anything wrong. After all, it's hard to tell what's in a person's heart. Just be more careful in the future. Dustless sat on the sofa and ate his snack seriously. Even though Elise's strength had been constantly improving recently, her mind had not changed. She was still as pure and naive as before. However, this was not her fault. This child was still young, lacked experience, and had not experienced any great storms. Elise, who was living in a greenhouse, always lacked the courage to deal with danger alone. Besides, changing the topic, Dustless smiled and said, instigating a spy can also be considered a gain. The merits offset the demerits. I still think I'm in the wrong. I'll only feel better if you punish me. Elise lowered her head and spoke in a very soft and honest tone. You're quite honest. Dustless smiled and shook his head to refuse. In fact, he was quite satisfied with Elise. There was no perfect person in this world. In the past, Dustless's underlings were much more outstanding than Elise, but none of them could make him worry. Some of them even betrayed him. But I've already said, your merits and demerits offset. If there's a next time, I'll really punish you. Dustless deliberately made a very scary expression. No way. Who would have thought that Elise would reject him in a serious manner? She emphasized in a serious tone. As Lord Wuchen's first servant, I have to set an example. I don't want Keely and Allegra to try to take advantage of my feelings when they make a mistake. This time, it was Dustless's turn to be surprised. He didn't expect this girl to think so far ahead. She even included Allegra and Keely in the equation. However, Dustless still had no intention of punishing Elise. Usually, his so-called punishment was to kill. We'll talk about the punishment later. Dustless casually replied. He then lowered his head and continued to eat his snacks. However, it was at this moment that Elise suddenly leaned over with a red face. This confused Dustless. What's wrong with this girl? A woman's mind is really hard to predict. I know what Lord Dustless likes. Do you want to try? Elise's voice was so weak that it was almost inaudible. There was even a faint feeling that she found it difficult to speak. It seemed like she was embarrassed. That's interesting. I don't even know what I like. What would you know? Tell me. Dustless looked at Elise with interest. Of course I know. Elise's face was red with excitement. It seemed that neither Keely nor Allegra had noticed Dustless's hobbies. Elise was the only exception. These days, Lord Dustless has a favorite activity. Which activity? Hearing this, Dustless was confused. He lowered his head and thought for a while. However, he still didn't understand. His eyebrows furrowed, and he was even more confused. Frankly speaking, the only thing that interested him was the most powerful person in the world. However, the so-called powerful people in this world were so weak that he could kill the most powerful person with a single breath. Therefore, Dustless was looking forward to what interest Elise was talking about. Could it be that he really did have a unique hobby? Just as Dustless was thinking hard, Elise suddenly turned her back to him. Her beautiful eyes were watery, and her head was almost buried in her cleavage. Her small hands moved down slightly and landed on the corner of her skirt. It was as if she had touched the most private part of her body. Elise's face was covered with a sickly blush. I'm going to start. Elise's words attracted Dustless's attention. The moment Dustless looked over and saw the girl's movements, his expression turned stiff. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. Elise, this little girl, actually slowly lifted her skirt. A scene that could make a man's blood boil appeared in front of him. Her light pink breasts and her perfectly round breasts. The skin on both sides of her breasts was as clear as snow, and the surface seemed to be covered with a faint layer of light. It was a dazzling sight. Come on. Those three simple words seemed to have used up all of Elise's strength. She gritted her teeth, and her face was red. I'm embarrassed too, but I can't help it. Lord Dustless likes this. Cough, cough, cough. Dustless hurriedly coughed. Speechless, he asked, when did I say that I like this? I saw it all. Elise couldn't even speak normally. She said in an extremely soft voice, when Keely and Allegra did something wrong, Lord Dustless punished them like this, F***CK. Dustless wanted to cry, but no tears came out. This time, he really felt like jumping into the Yellow River would never be able to clear his name. He did this as a warning. Otherwise, he would kill them directly. Chapter 40. After all, Yang Xinyao was already dead. No matter how much Dustless hated this kid, he wouldn't stoop to the level of a dead person. So, what do you plan to do next? Dustless looked at Ing Man's real name. He definitely had to leave. Then, this child would become the new king of the human race. In a world without him and Yang Shinya, no one could stop Ingman real name's footsteps. Ingman real name choked when she heard this. She wasn't as happy as she had imagined. Her eyes were filled with confusion. Yang Shinya was already dead. What should she do? The most pitiful thing is actually people like you, right? Dustless's tone was filled with pity. Previously, Ingman real name relied on hatred to survive. Now that the main culprit, Yang Shinya, was dead, she seemed to have lost the meaning of living. I'll take my leave. Have fun. Dustless was too lazy to talk nonsense. He whistled and walked away leisurely. With your current ability, it shouldn't be a problem for you to dominate the world. I'm tired of playing. I'll leave this world to you to continue wreaking havoc. In his words, Dustless treated the future of the entire human race as a game. In fact, he was such a selfish person. He only had himself in his eyes. If you wanted him to think for others, the sun would rise from the west. Please guide me. Ingman real name immediately blocked Dustless's path and knelt down sincerely. I've offended you in the past. I hope you can forgive me. Guide you? Dustless opened his mouth when he heard this. He stared at Ingman real name in shock, as if he had seen a new continent. This woman changed so quickly. Didn't she want to kill him when she met him previously? Now, she needed him to guide her. I'm not interested. Dustless replied expressionlessly. This sentence made Ingman real name's confused gaze even more desperate. He said frankly, I'm a very selfish person. In this world, I only help two kinds of people, my women and my little brother. You're neither of them. What reason do I have to help you? God loved the world. Perhaps God was really so great. However, there was a condition. You had to believe in him sincerely. Otherwise, would God save you? Absolutely not. Therefore, there is no free lunch in this world. I am willing to follow you. Ingman real name looked up at Dustless, her beautiful eyes glowing with a bright light, as bright and firm as diamonds. What a foolish woman. Dustless couldn't be bothered to say more. His eyes blinked, and his lips moved slightly. He wanted to say something, but stopped. In fact, he roughly understood what Ingman's real name was thinking. She probably wanted to find a way to resurrect Ingmanji from him. In fact, Dustless really wanted to ask if it was really worth it. Just for a dead person. You've been poisoned with feelings. Dustless sighed and then said coldly, since you've chosen to follow me, don't regret it. After that, he resolutely turned around and left. Ingman real name couldn't help but be overjoyed when she heard this. She quickly wiped the starlight surging from the corner of her eyes and immediately followed. Since Dustless was able to revive her, then reviving Ingmanji shouldn't be too difficult. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. Yang Shinya was killed by Dustless, and GHQ, which was originally entrenched in Japan, also collapsed. At present, the country was controlled by the imperial household. Although the imperial household was not an outstanding politician, he had some means to manage everything in an orderly manner. The country was gradually on the right track. However, because of the previous war, most of Japan had been turned into ruins. Currently, they were in the midst of intense reconstruction, which required a lot of funds. Therefore, the process was very slow. It would probably take decades to recover. Even so, the imperial household was very satisfied. At least they had taken back the ruling power, and everything would slowly get better. In a certain villa of the imperial household, Dustless did not leave for the time being. He still lived a life of debauchery and drunkenness. During this period, he also picked the delicate flower, Arisa. After all, she was sent to his door, and Dustless couldn't refuse her kindness. It would be a waste if he didn't take it, right? In the garden where hundreds of flowers were blooming, the spring was in full bloom. Green and pink intertwined in the sea of flowers, the scenery was too beautiful to behold. In a pavilion, Wu Chun was leisurely lying on a couch. His eyes were half closed, and he was snoring lightly. He seemed to be asleep. There was also a figure standing beside him, Asamiya Iase. Her back was straight, and she was always on guard like a bodyguard. Ta-ta-ta! Not long after, there was a burst of messy footsteps. Dustless opened his eyes and looked at Asamiya Iase with dissatisfaction. Why didn't you stop them? Can I stop them? Asamiya Ia shrugged, showing a helpless expression. Looking up, the people who were coming were Imperial households Arisa and others. Dustless, Sama, I heard that you're leaving. Imperial household Arisa was the first to rush over, followed by Sakura, Chun-Xia, Yatu, and Inori, including Sakura's real name and others. Among them, the most nervous were Sakura, Chun-Xia, and Imperial household Arisa. What shouldn't have happened had happened. They were already Dustless's people. Even if they were dissatisfied, they could only follow him. For this world, I was originally a passerby, and I will naturally leave at the end of the trip. Dustless told the truth, and at the same time, his eyes fell on Sakura's real name, and asked doubtfully, I said before, you are free. Dustless agreed to the request of Sakura's real name and resurrected Sakura Manji. He didn't embarrass Sakura's real name and gave her freedom very generously, but this child came back. It was really strange. In fact, after the resurrection, Sakura Manji was a bit strange and panicked. After seeing Sakura's real name, she was still nervous and scared. She probably subconsciously thought that this sister was a monster. She was afraid that she couldn't avoid it. This made Sakura's real name suffer a blow. Even though she always wanted to take care of Sakura Manji, her brother, he was always afraid of her. Sakura's real name smiled bitterly and explained, I will continue to follow Dustless, Sama. For Sakura, I am a nightmare-like existence. It is enough for him to live happily, and I, as his sister, will disappear from his sight forever. You are really carefree, worthy of praise. You have made progress in your thinking. Dustless showed a rare look of appreciation. Love was not simply possession. As long as the other party was happy, it was enough. Sakura's real name seemed to be really relieved now. What about you guys? Dustless's eyes swept over them one by one, and Inori nodded without hesitation. It seemed that because he created this new body for her, she was extremely dependent on Dustless, and probably already regarded him as a father. I'll suffer a little and walk with you. Blackbird still had the same carefree look on her face. She crossed her arms in a very proud manner. Even if I stay, you'll forcibly drag me away, right? Sakura Manji and Chun-Xia already understood Dustless's character. This guy would never give up on someone who had slept with him. In Dustless's words, leave her alone? What a joke. What if she was cuckolded? Then let's run. Dustless smiled faintly and snapped his fingers. The sky above burst open, revealing a huge door, and a golden halo shot out and swallowed them. Chapter 41. After all, Zirda was still a sinner through and through. She could still move freely, but she was still a sinner. In the original work, in order to get rid of her punishment, Shir had even secretly contacted Tian Wuyao. The deal was that after Tian Wuyao became the champion of the Lion Heron Star Martial Arts Festival, her punishment would be lifted, and sure, it would help Tian Wuyao recover her consciousness. Unfortunately, she didn't have the chance this time. Puff! The light condensed on Dustless's fingertip shot out again and easily penetrated Zirda's knee. She immediately screamed, Sir, I've already told you everything. Why are you still targeting me like this? Zirda endured the pain and asked. Although her tone was gentle and respectful, and her attitude was respectful to Dustless, there was still hatred in the depths of her eyes. It was fine if this kind of person was unknown in the future, but once she rose to the top, she would definitely not let Dustless off so easily in the future. Therefore, this woman must die. I'm really sorry. Thank you for your information, but you must die. Dustless's thumb flashed again and aimed at Zirda's head. The girl was startled. Then, her expression looked as if she was possessed by an evil spirit. She cursed with a sinister expression. Damn scum. I curse you. Puffed. Before she could finish her sentence, the light beam swept out like a divine sword. Zirda's head exploded on the spot, and bright red brain matter splattered all over the ground. Dustless didn't feel guilty about killing this woman. Who knew how many crazy scientists like Zirda had died under her hands? It was best if she died. Alphalia was a living example. Although she had miraculously survived and became one of the strongest witches in history, the price she had to pay was that she had lost her humanity forever. She had probably been destroyed by Hilda, and this time he would take revenge for her. Before leaving, Dustless burned down this evil laboratory, including some of the human materials. All of them were buried in the sea of fire. This could be considered as helping them escape. By the time Dustless returned, today's competition had already ended. The students of the Star Guide Academy were not very lucky. Their opponents were extremely powerful. Dao Tongkuren and Sha Gong Sha Yi were scared but not in any danger. As for the others, they were sadly eliminated. For example, Lei Shida was defeated as soon as he appeared. By the time they returned to the Star Director Academy in the evening, Elena had already recovered and could walk around safely. Sir, if you have any tasks for me, feel free to tell me. Elena respected Dustless as if he was her second parent. If it wasn't for him, the two sisters might have died without a complete corpse. You just need a rest. Dustless waved his hand. He didn't really care. He didn't have anything important to give to Elena. But I'm not used to always cheating you for food and drinks. Elena looked at Dustless with a troubled expression. You're quite an honest person. Wuchen looked at Elena strangely. This woman trusted him so much that she would even do it if he asked her to die. But if you really want to do it, I'll give you a task. Dustless narrowed his eyes, shooting out a ruthless light, and said, in case something uncontrollable happens, you go and kill the entire Sky Mist Ling Do family. Understood. Elena nodded without hesitation and then quietly left. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, it was the morning of the next day. It was time for Dustless to participate in the second round of the Star Phoenix Martial Festival. Unfortunately, his opponent was World Dragon 7th Academy. One of them was called Li Xinyun, ranked 9th in World Dragon 7th Academy, and her sister was called Li Shenhua. I heard you defeated that pair of trash yesterday. Looks like you're not bad, but don't think you can defeat us siblings today. Li Xinyun's eyes were unruly as she looked at Dustless and Yuli's with a gloomy face. In the end, it's just good luck. Li Shenhua also had a disdainful attitude. Did these two idiots eat gunpowder or something? Who were they venting their anger at? Dustless was secretly depressed. He and Yuli's seemed to have never offended these two Chinibu patients. Those two fellows were originally our prey. Since you two killed them, we'll start with you two. Li Xinyun's eyes were filled with hostility. Even though they were all from the same school, he and Li Shanhua were from the Water faction, while Song Ran and Luo Kunzhen were from the Wood faction. The two factions were like fire and water, and were completely hostile to each other. Originally, Li Xinyun and Li Shanhua wanted to take care of those two from the Wood faction and take the opportunity to attack Fan Xinglu's power. But the plan could not keep up with the changes. Song Ran and Luo Kunzhen were defeated the moment they entered the arena. They were beaten up by Dustless and Yuli's, which naturally disrupted the siblings' plan. Therefore, Dustless and Yuli's were hated by the siblings. Even if you're being unreasonable, you should know when to stop. World Dragon Academy having students like you is simply a disgrace. Yuli said in annoyance. The siblings' eyes were very annoying, as if they were looking at insects. Hee. I hope you two can still be so arrogant later. I won't let you leave so easily. I'll have to torture you. Li Xinyun's face was distorted, and Li Shanhua also revealed a sick smile. Likewise, I also have the same plan. Dustless responded, and his face was brewing murderous intent. These two little perverts had personality defects, and their personalities were similar to sadomasochism. In the original work, they tortured Yuli so much that she almost lost consciousness. Therefore, Dustless also hated these two siblings and took the opportunity to cripple them. Chapter 42. This wave of framing was really powerful and extraordinary. Even Dustless couldn't find fault with it. Perhaps even Xiao Jiwu thought that he was the mastermind behind it. Do you agree or not? Mingwu leaned over and naturally laid beside Dustless. She purposely opened her collar and exposed her snow-white skin. If you agree, there will be a reward. Mingwu blinked her seductive eyes. Her burning gaze almost melted Dustless. Anyone who was looked at by her would feel their heart racing and their blood boiling. Dustless did not fall for it. He raised his hand and rubbed the girl's head. All right, you can go back. You just want to speed up your sister's IS construction project, right? I'll just give the order. This was not a big deal. It was just a matter of Dustless's words. I knew you're the best. Hearing this, Mingwu smiled and blushed. She took the initiative to leave a kiss mark on the right side of Dustless's face. Hee, if there are any women looking for trouble with you in the future, just leave it to me. I'm the best at solving girls' problems. Mingwu clenched her fist to show off to Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless rolled his eyes. He did not even need to think about it. This girl must have done something bad to someone else and then pushed the blame onto him. She even said that it was his order. Then I'll go back. After achieving her goal, Mingwu skipped away. I'll go to Mingwu's place to have a look. It would be best if I could explain it to her. But according to my estimation, that kid probably won't listen. Dustless looked at Mingwu's back and also got up to leave. It would have been fine if she had just casually beaten up Xiao Jiwu. The key point was that Mingwu even stripped her naked in front of everyone. How could a girl like Mingwu endure this? In front of Xiao Jiwu's dorm, Dustless pressed the doorbell. Cough, cough, cough. Dustless coughed twice and put on a selfless expression. Mingwu, I'm sorry about what happened before. I'm here to look for you. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Dustless's voice hadn't even fallen when an ear-piercing sound of something breaking through the air came from afar. Glancing sideways, he saw countless fiery lights flashing in his direction. Missiles? That's interesting. Dustless narrowed his eyes. His right eye suddenly turned into a mysterious blue and white eye, allowing him to see everything tens of kilometers away. Even a fly 10 kilometers away could be seen clearly. From this, one could see how terrifying and powerful the Tensigan was. In the sky 10 kilometers away, a silver-white IS stood in the sky. Its body was covered in black smoke. Clearly, it was this mysterious IS that launched the missiles. Bang, 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 bang. The missile exploded before it even reached them. The guards of the IS Academy were not bad. It's probably the Silver Gospel. Dustless retracted his gaze. After some observation, he realized that it was an unmanned AI machine. Someone was controlling it from behind the scenes. Despicable bastard. How dare you appear in front of me? The door suddenly opened, revealing a fierce face. Who else could it be but Scheinesheim? Still so fierce. It seems that you're not injured. You are very energetic. Wu Chan heaved a sigh of relief and said with a faint smile, Your sister has planned a performance for you to debut. Dustless looked at the horizon in the distance. His tone became meaningful. Although he only observed for a dozen seconds, Dustless could see that the Silver Gospel that attacked the IS Academy was quite good. There were as many as 4 propulsion devices behind it. The normal IS only had 2. There was also a huge gap between the 3rd-generation IS and the mecha and weapons. It probably adopted some 4th-generation IS technology. Other than Scheinesheim, who else could create an IS that transcends generations? She probably wanted to use this opportunity to show the superiority of Red Toon to the world. However, I overestimated your strength. Looking at the Silver Gospel in the distance, it was not that Dustless didn't believe in Scheinesheim. This kid just got Red Toon not long ago and didn't have much time to train. Secondly, this IS was obviously modified. Some of the technology was upgraded. It had the foundation of the 4th-generation IS and was probably several times more powerful than the original Silver Gospel. If Scheinesheim wanted to deal with it alone, it would be impossible. Me? Scheinesheim's expression was also a bit hesitant. She wanted to back out. After being beaten up by Scheinesheim, she realized that she was pitifully weak and began to question her own ability. If I go, I will only embarrass my sister and disappoint her. Scheinesheim bit her cracked lips as blood slowly flowed out. She was unwilling to give up. With your current strength, you will be beaten if you go. Dustless nodded in agreement and then said slowly, I remember when I asked you to follow me, you refused. Who can you blame? If you follow me, you have seen Cecilia's improvement, right? Although Scheinesheim was currently the strongest person in the IS Academy, according to Dustless's prediction, once Cecilia and Scheinesheim fought, she, as the student council president, would lose. It was almost certain that there would be no accidents. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, explosions occurred in other directions of the IS Academy. Suffocating black smoke filled the air as giant fireballs appeared in the air. The smoke of war spread across the entire IS Academy. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Unknown IS appeared one after another like ghosts and attacked the school without restraint. They didn't even let the students go. This is all my sister is doing? Scheinesheim clenched her fist in disbelief. What was the difference between this behavior and terrorists? Chapter 43. Leave her to me. Ulysses' beautiful eyes glowed with a scorching light. Li Shenhua treated her as prey, but she didn't know that Ulysses also treated Li Shenhua the same way. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In front of Dustless, a large number of paper talismans shot towards him. All of them were filled with the words urgent as the law order. Die, you arrogant fellow, Li Xinyun roared. His hands suddenly formed a hand shadow as he shouted. Explode. Boom, boom, boom. The explosion talismans around Dustless exploded at the same time, fusing into a ferocious fireball that burned crazily on his body. Crackling sounds continuously came from it, as if a person was being burned. Is this guy really a Taoist? Why does he feel like a ninja? Dustless, who was in the fireball, slowly walked forward. As for the burning sea of fire around him, he ignored it. First, it was the clone technique, and then this kind of explosive talisman. No matter how one looked at it, it all looked like something a ninja would use. This brat, even if he doesn't die, he will shed a layer of skin. What? The smile on Li Xinyun's face suddenly froze, and she couldn't help but open her eyes wide. Dustless walked out of the fire with a relaxed expression. His expression was normal, and there were no signs of him being burned. Damn it, what kind of monster is this guy? Why didn't he burn? Li Xinyun's face was ashen, but the audience outside burst into an earth-shattering sound. So powerful. I think that Li Xinyun is finished. That's right, he will definitely lose. After fighting for so long, he didn't even touch a hair of his opponent. How can he participate in the Phoenix Star martial arts ceremony with this kind of standard? I think he's just here to be funny. The audience outside were discussing and snorting at Li Xinyun. It was too embarrassing. She had created such a mess, but in the end, she didn't even touch the body of her opponent. You bastard, just you wait, I'll teach you a lesson soon. Hearing the ear-piercing ridicule, Li Xinyun's resentment towards Dustless deepened. Has his brat's head been squeezed by the door? What does it have to do with me if the audience outside is following suit? Looking at this kid's vicious expression, Dustless was also speechless. This kid's brain must have been hit with iron. You don't seem to have any more tricks up your sleeve. It's my turn now. Dustless gazed at the clones of Li Xinyun, formed a hand seal, and spat out a sea of fire from his mouth. Fire style. Grand fire annihilation. Boom, boom, boom. Dustless spat out a vast sea of fire from his mouth. It was like a tsunami rolling out. Everywhere it went, not even a blade of grass grew. Even the ground was scorched black. Bang, bang, bang. Those invisible explosive talismans all exploded, blowing the sea of fire into pieces. Like scattered raindrops, they sprinkled to every corner, and the sky was raining fire. Boom, boom, boom. However, it was useless. The sea of fire was too powerful and continuous. Even though the first wave was blasted into smithereens, the second wave, which was even more vast, continued to crush Li Xinyun. Damn it! Those clones were forced into a desperate situation. Their eye sockets were about to burst. Although the competition area wasn't small, the sea of fire was too big. They were all forced into a corner. Boom, boom, boom. The flames swept out with unstoppable force. The ground was scorched black, and those clones were turned into nothingness. You are the only one left, brat. Dustless glanced at Li Xinyun, who was the only one left. No matter how many clones you have or how many explosive talismans you have, it is all a matter of fire. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Immediately after, Dustless lifted his right leg. Light beams were wrapped around it. He aimed at Li Xinyun's location and threw a kick. Light speed kick. Boom, boom, boom. The light beams landed on Li Xinyun's location and exploded like a time bomb. Tumbling flames and mushroom clouds burned fiercely. That brat didn't even have a corpse left. It seems like it is over. Dustless put his hands in his pockets and said indifferently, "This boring competition is finally over." It is finally over? A sinister voice that sounded like a venomous snake came from behind. Li Xinyun appeared like a ghost again. He stuck out his disgusting tongue and said with a sinister smile, "I'm sorry. Those that were killed by you were actually clones. Go to hell." At the same time, Li Xinyun threw out countless explosive talismans and stuck them tightly to Dustless's body. "Is that so? Then you're really smart." Dustless smiled and praised. Even though his entire body was covered by the explosive talismans, his expression didn't change. His eyes were still as calm as an ancient well. "This time, I will blow you up until you lose consciousness," Li Xinyun roared. He then shouted, "Explode!" Boom, boom, boom. Thousands of explosive talismans exploded at the same time. The momentum was shocking. Dustless's body immediately burned and turned into a terrifying flaming man. The power released from the explosion was extremely powerful. The ground under Dustless's feet was instantly blown into a deep pit. No matter who it was, they would die without a doubt under such terrifying heat. "Ha ha, you should be done for now. Not only will I eliminate you, but I will also roast you." Li Xinyun laughed maniacally. His eyes were filled with madness and had turned blood red. "Commentator, are you an idiot? Why aren't you announcing the winner?" Li Xinyun roared at the commentator after laughing proudly for more than 10 seconds. "I'm really sorry. The school emblem didn't break, and I didn't lose consciousness. There will definitely be no winner." A deathly stifling voice resounded behind her. Li Xinyun suddenly quivered and hurriedly turned around to take a look. To her astonishment, it was Wu Chun who was smiling behind her. "Damn it!" Li Xinyun rubbed his eyes angrily and flew into a rage. After confirming that it was Dustless, he scolded, "You should have been burned into a cripple by me. Do you think you're the only one who knows how to clone? Idiot! The one that was destroyed by you earlier was also my clone." Dustless sneered. Soon after, his eyes turned cold. A radiance flashed in his hand as he slashed at Li Xinyun. Uffed. A bloody wound appeared on Li Xinyun's chest. Blood spurted out and he lost consciousness. Li Xinyun has lost consciousness. Starguide Academy's Dustless wins. A few seconds after Li Xinyun collapsed, the commentator's voice echoed in everyone's ears. Chapter 44. What's the matter? Atlanta looked at her bewildered look and frowned. Because not only Fiore, but even Dustless's expression was extremely strange at the moment, revealing a rare trace of shock. "I'm also very surprised. Why would a dead person suddenly resurrect? That guy was indeed killed by me. I could be 100% sure, but now he's resurrected?" Dustless was also full of doubts. Following his line of sight, he saw Archer standing on the ruined castle. Yes, it was the Black Archer who was previously obliterated by Dustless. In fact, not to mention Fiore, even Dustless himself was dumbfounded. He was sure that he killed Archer. But what the hell is going on? Is he a corpse or a living person? Whoosh! Once again, the sound of arrows piercing through the air could be heard. Raising his head, he saw a large number of arrows flying towards him. "Come here!" Dustless shouted at Atlanta, and the chick immediately ran over. "Shinra Tensei!" Bang! Transparent ripples of power whistled, and the fatal arrows were all knocked away or broken. Archer couldn't break through this tyrannical repulsion at all. This guy seems to be wrong. Dustless glanced at Fiore, and his heart was even more puzzled. There was no doubt that the Black Archer's host was Fiore, but the wave of arrow attack just now clearly covered Fiore, but it also wanted to kill the host? This didn't seem like Archer's style. "Why Archer?" Fiore obviously also saw the problem and asked absent-mindedly. She couldn't believe it because she and Archer didn't have a simple contractual relationship. Sometimes he was a teacher and a friend. Even without the restrictions of the contract, Archer couldn't do anything to her, but the reality was like a loud slap, slapping her in the face, and her empty eyes almost lost herself. Unfortunately, my master is no longer you, Fiore. Archer's tone was full of deep helplessness and complexity. It could be seen that this was something he couldn't change. What a joke, Dustless sneered and said disdainfully. How long has it been since I killed you? In such a short period of time, not only did you revive, you even found a new host? Atlanta and Fiore both nodded in agreement. This was too unusual. Of course, not under normal circumstances, but Black Archer paused for a moment as he panted. It could be seen that he was also very shocked by this matter. After calming himself down a little, he slowly said, "But with the help of the Holy Grail, wouldn't it be enough?" That Sieg made a wish on the Holy Grail? Dustless's face also revealed a look of surprise. His previous doubts were quickly swept away. If it was the Holy Grail, then it was indeed not a big problem. In the eyes of many, it was an omnipotent wishing machine that could do anything. I'm really surprised. That Sieg actually made a wish to the Holy Grail. But why did he revive you? Are you very strong? Don't tease me. Dustless was still full of doubts. He frowned and said, "Even if that guy resurrected you for some reason, there is no reason for him to kill me." Could it be? Dustless suddenly thought of a figure in his mind. Was it because of the previous Black Rider, Alstofo? After thinking about it for a while, this was the most likely possibility. For Sieg, Alstofo was his savior. Not only did he let that kid go, but he even gave Sieg the Holy Grail. His kind of great favor. Sieg estimated that he would never be able to repay it all in his life. But later, Dustless killed the Black Rider. Well, to be exact, it was not Dustless who did it, but Atlanta. Of course, the most important thing was that Alstofo did not use his strength at all. He was completely thinking of suicide at that time. It's because of the rider that Sieg hates you. Black Archer once again raised his bow and aimed at Dustless. But even if that's the case, that guy relied on the Holy Grail to resurrect you. Can he kill me? Isn't this idea too ridiculous? If I can kill you once, I can kill you a second time, a third time, or even 100 times. Dustless announced expressionlessly. His voice was exceptionally loud. No, that's not my initial wish. Black Archer looked at Dustless with a gloomy expression. After a moment of silence, he said, "All this time, I thought that the Holy Grail was omnipotent. But until the incident with Sieg, I realized that I was wrong." "Oh, that kid's wish couldn't be fulfilled?" Dustless raised his eyebrows and asked in surprise. "Yes." Black Archer nodded heavily. He looked at Dustless with a serious expression. "Sieg's initial wish was for the Holy Grail to kill you, but the Holy Grail couldn't do that. In the end, his wish changed. He resurrected several powerful heroic spirits to kill you, and I'm just one of them. Is that guy crazy?" Fiore and Atlanta both exclaimed. They couldn't understand Sieg. Why did he have to go through so much trouble? Since he liked the Black Rider so much, why didn't he just use the Holy Grail to resurrect him? Why did he have to make such a cruel wish? You can play like this? Dustless rubbed his nose, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Is this considered cheating? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 45. Do you know your crime? After examining Guillen for a moment, Veronica said coldly. Sylvia was stunned, thinking that she had misheard. She asked with a trembling mouth, "Sister Veronica, are you serious?" Guillen, he might have been misled too. "No, this is my choice." The simple-minded Guillen decisively ignored Sylvia's good intentions. "Good, very good." Veronica's voice was full of killing intent. Sylvia's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. She begged Dustless to give her face in hopes that Veronica would be merciful. She simply thought that this sister would be merciful. Who would have thought? You have brought this upon yourself. This is a capital offense. Veronica's tone was unshakable. She said in a deep voice. Gulian, as my confidant, did not play an exemplary role. Instead, he secretly contacted the enemy. His crime is punishable by death, but you have been with me for many years. Even if you have not made any contributions, you have worked hard. Take your own life as an apology. Veronica's voice was incomparably cold. Just as Dustless had predicted, Gulian would not be able to escape death no matter what. However, taking his own life was much more dignified than being executed. Take care of yourself from now on. It's getting late. Goodbye. Dustless only needed to hear the result. He stretched and got up to leave, leaving everyone with a view of his back. You can't be serious, right? Yak's mouth was wide open. She couldn't believe it, even if she was beaten to death. Isn't this guy too cold? He killed him just like that? Even if it was a dog, after following its master for several years, they would have built a deep relationship with each other. Not to mention Gulian. He had contributed to Veronica's career and defeated many enemies. Now he had fallen to the end of taking his own life. In the evening, the news of Princess Veronica's confidant, Gulian, taking his own life spread. The entire Ansari Dragonite Academy was caught in the whirlpool of public opinion. No one knew the specific reason, but it could be considered as saving Gulian some face. Meow, meow, meow. In the quiet room, there was a soft moan. Dustless, who was resting on the sofa, suddenly opened his eyes. What kind of show is this? Dustless frowned as he stared at the beautiful woman sitting on top of him, ignoring the saliva-inducing curves. It's too much to disturb someone's rest. The person who came into view had exquisite facial features and was extremely beautiful. She had a figure and a face and long legs. She was impeccable in all aspects, and she even knew how to act cute. She was unusually tall and looked somewhat similar to Yak. This was not the first time they had met the person sitting on Dustless's waist. Her name was Nabi. Ah, what a cold attitude. Nabi pouted angrily, but Dustless did not even look at her. This guy was actually AI, Ku's memory clone. He seemed to have some special feelings for Dustless and would often come out to pester him. If you have something to say, just say it. Dustless looked at Nabi and closed his eyes again. Nabi looked deeply at Dustless. After a long time, she sighed and said unhappily, I'm afraid this is the last time I come out to harass you. Goodbye forever. As she spoke, tears fell from Nabi's eyes in disbelief. She seemed particularly sad and reluctant. Are you starting to put on a sad show? Seeing this, Dustless was speechless. He helplessly patted the girl's head. Can't you be a little more obedient? Don't play these little games all day. You're AI Ku after 5 years. 5 years later, she's still so childish. I'm telling the truth. Nabi squinted her eyes and enjoyed it for a moment. Then, she pushed away Dustless's palm on her head and emphasized, I've decided to fuse with AI Ku. They were originally the same person, so the fusion was naturally fate. Hearing this, Dustless's calm eyes rippled slightly. His bored eyes began to condense and emit bursts of light. Fusion? That's a pity. AI Ku will probably reject it. There was suddenly another person in her body. Although the initiative and control of the body, including the thoughts, were still with AI Ku, no one would be able to accept such a thing, right? You're right. When we were in the Dragon Workshop, I talked to her about a similar topic, but AI Ku rejected it. Nabi didn't mince her words. There was no need to hide this kind of thing. Even if AI Ku rejected it, she would still forcibly fuse with AI Ku because there were too many implications involved. It was even closely related to the future of the dragon race. What if I don't agree? Dustless asked. This seems to be between me and AI Ku. You don't have the right to interfere. Even though she already knew that Dustless was overbearing and unreasonable, Nabi still retorted unhappily when she saw his condescending gaze. This has a lot to do with me. Don't forget, AI Ku was born from absorbing my power. To a certain extent, she's my child. Now that you're fusing with her, don't you know how I feel as a father? Dustless's expression was sharp, and his eyes were sharp. He didn't seem to be joking. You're AI Ku's father. Hearing this, Nabi's lips curled into a mischievous smile. Her body wrapped around Dustless like a snake, and she asked in a soft and coquettish tone, "What kind of father would do such a thing to his daughter? You insatiable brat. Who gave you the courage?" Dustless's mouth twitched. His face darkened as he asked, "Are you secretly observing me?" "No, I'm just observing Aiko." Nabi shrugged, as if it had nothing to do with her. As for what kind of indescribable thing it was, looking at Dustless's angry and somewhat awkward expression, she knew it wasn't anything good. Chapter 46. I can't accept this. The Black Lancer struggled violently with his forelimbs. His hands were grasping at the air, the veins on his palms and the back of his hands were bulging, as if he wanted to strangle Dustless to death. Thinking about it carefully, you are indeed a little tragic. It was not easy for you to be resurrected, and it hasn't even been a minute, right? You didn't even have time to take a few breaths of fresh air before you were killed. I should at least apologize to you. Dustless seemed to really understand the Lancer's pain, and his tone sounded very apologetic. However, it would have been better if he did not say anything. After he finished speaking, the Black Lancer was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was purplish red. He would not be grateful for Dustless's apology. No, it was not an apology at all. It was deliberately exposing his scars. I curse you to die a horrible death. The Black Lancer's eyes bulged outwards, and his black eyeballs were bloodshot. His expression was like that of a demon who had fallen into hell. A guy like you should... Unfortunately, before he could finish his words, the Black Lancer's body dissipated. You're next. How do you plan to die? Dustless's gaze swept towards the Black Archer and said faintly, If I remember correctly, that move just now can only be used once a day. Sharon, next. What do you have to fight me? The Black Archer frowned and did not speak for a long time. In fact, he was depressed because this guy knew too much. Give up, Archer. With your strength, you can't kill Dustless. Please accept reality. Tears flashed in Fiore's eyes. You're the only friend I have left. I don't want to lose you. I'm sorry, Fiore. The Black Archer did not address her as master at this time. He directly called her by her name and said from the perspective of a friend, even if I agree verbally, my body will involuntarily carry out the command incantation's command. You should know this. In that case, I can only let you die. Dustless didn't hesitate. He decisively raised his thumb, and an energy ball containing strong spiritual pressure quickly appeared. As for the Black Side Archer, with the command incantation's command, he picked up his bow again and aimed at Dustless. Just like Lancer, he was ordered to kill Dustless through a command curse. Before I leave, I want to say something. Black Archer's face remained calm. He could feel the power of Void Flash in Dustless's hand. Even if Dustless was perfectly resurrected and regained all his strength, it would still be a huge threat to him, let alone a mere heroic spirit. Lady Fiore, it's a pleasure to meet you. Please remember my name, Sharon. Black Archer finally smiled gently at File. His handsome face was filled with gentleness. Even Dustless's expression softened. The clean and shallow smile was like a refreshing breeze, brushing away Fiore's sadness. Those clear eyes seemed to be able to speak. Not only Fiore, but even Dustless, an outsider, understood the deep meaning of Karen's words. If Sharon could survive, the two of them would become close friends in the future. It's a pity that the world is so cruel. 9 out of 10 things are not satisfactory. Dustless's compassion quickly disappeared. The Void Flash in his hand was thrown out in a straight line, and the archer also shot out a dense number of arrows. Void Flash! At this moment, Fiore could no longer hold back the tears in her eyes, and they burst out. Boom, boom, boom! Void Flash finally exploded on the archer's body. He disappeared on the spot, and the space where he was also blasted into a large hole. He was instantly killed by an overwhelming force. In case Sieg can't find us for revenge, let's stay here, Atlanta. While speaking, Dustless had already used wood release to build some houses. Understood. Atlanta nodded obediently, then quietly walked to Dustless's side and asked in a soft voice, Lord Dustless. This child is quite pitiful. Her family is dead, and she is the only one left. Why don't you take her in?" Atlanta was a kind-hearted person, and she sympathized with Fiori's experience. "If she can accept it, I don't mind." Dustless waved his hand, and he didn't care about this kind of thing at all. With light steps, Dustless walked into the wooden house to rest. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, a few hours had passed. The sky gradually darkened, and soon it was night. The night was full, and the stars hanging high in the night sky were glowing. In this hot summer, even at night, it was as stuffy as being in a steamer. A few gusts of wind swept across the grassy plain, blowing on people's faces, and it was particularly comfortable. Why did this happen? Didn't I die? How did I suddenly come back to life? Or is everything that happened in front of me just a dream? Under the lush green tree, a golden-haired girl wearing medieval clothes and armor muttered to herself in a daze. She held a flag in her hand, which was painted with exquisite patterns that swayed in the night wind. The girl's beautiful eyes, which had been puzzled for a long time, suddenly lit up. Could it be that all of this is Lord? Lord, my ass, your Lord is not great to this point. He has already laid himself to rest. What right does he have to resurrect you? This abrupt sentence made the girl extremely angry because she was a devout believer and a saintess. The girl suddenly turned her head and looked towards the source of the voice. She didn't see anyone, but she angrily rebuked. Where did this heathen come from? How dare you speak to the revered Lord? Dustless. After seeing the person who came, the girl's beautiful eyes widened in an instant, and her rosy lips opened to the maximum limit. She was very surprised. I haven't seen you for a while. You seem to have changed a lot, ruler. Dustless walked over with his hands behind his head. No, you're no longer ruler now. The Holy Grail War is over for you. It's not too much to call you Jean, right? This blonde girl was the ruler who willingly died in the hands of Dustless. In fact, ruler didn't want to be enemies with Dustless, but due to the rules of the Holy Grail War, she chose to die in the hands of Dustless in the end. Could it be that you resurrected me? Jean asked with a strange expression. This kind of unbelievable thing was impossible if it was someone else. But if it was Dustless, Jean still remembered Atlanta, who was resurrected by Dustless. Chapter 47. Xiao Jiwu's heart was filled with complex emotions. Like an overturned bottle of 5 different flavors, sour, sweet, bitter, and spicy. You should reflect on yourself. Dustless took a deep look at Xiao Jiwu before he turned around and left. But as soon as he left, an uninvited guest blocked his way. Follow me. Mingwe Wu forcefully pulled Dustless's hand away. She used so much force that red marks appeared on her wrist. Why are you in such a hurry? Dustless didn't struggle as he allowed the girl to pull him. He studied Mingwe Wu's frozen expression. It was a rare moment of seriousness. Did you find Summer of Woven Spots? Dustless's face turned cold. If his previous interactions with Summer of Woven Spots were purely for fun, then this time he had crossed the line by infiltrating IS Academy with terrorists. Before, Dustless could turn a blind eye because of Woven Spot's Chien, but this time that kid had committed a capital offense. No. Mingwe Wu slowly shook her head before she said in a sinister tone, If I catch that guy, I will make him regret living. Mingwe Wu's tone was filled with unprecedented hatred. Her only sister was attacked by Summer of Woven Spots and was severely injured. How could she not be angry? You haven't forgotten what I said before, right? Mingwe Wu's face was filled with worry. About my sister's condition. Weren't you afraid that I would treat your sister as a mental patient? Now you know to come to me? Dustless said in a sarcastic tone. Before, his warm face was stuck to Mingwe Wu's cold butt. I was wrong. Is that not enough? Feng Wu showed an aggrieved expression. She hugged Wu Qin's arm and acted coquettishly. Her tone was soft, and her arms swayed in her embrace. Sometimes, it would touch her high cleavage. Dustless's heart was in turmoil as he glanced at the IS Academy uniform that was propped up high. He muttered in his mind, This kid is too developed. She probably has the potential to be a dairy cow in the future. Only this time, no next time. After some coaxing, Dustless finally agreed. In fact, he had a good impression of Mingwe Wu. In a quiet ward, Morjizan was lying quietly. Her face was pale, her breathing was very weak, and her eyebrows were purple. It seemed that it was not a simple skin wound. As soon as he entered the ward, Dustless realized that Gungzan's injury was very serious because this was the ICU. There doesn't seem to be much of a problem. Dustless gave it a cursory glance and didn't find any clues. This is a big problem. Mingwu laughed bitterly and sighed. He gritted his teeth and explained, "My sister was seriously injured by those terrorists and was forced to eat poison." Really? Hearing this, Dustless's pupils rippled as he asked suspiciously, "You saw it?" Dustless opened the tensigan and saw a purple liquid flowing in the blood vessels of the hairpin, eroding her internal organs. This poison wasn't very fatal. It was a slow-acting virus, but it could be very dangerous over time. No. Mingwe shook his head and didn't say much. He took out his mobile phone and played a recording. "Your sister was poisoned by us. Don't try to save her. If you want to get the antidote, take Dustless's head and give it to us. Otherwise, just wait for death." No wonder you hate Weaver Spot's first summer so much. Dustless was relieved. He instantly recognized this voice as Weaver Spot's first summer. But that kid is really good. He even knows how to poison people. Wu Chun praised impolitely. "You even know how to kill with a borrowed knife." Not bad. When a sunny and kind-hearted person falls into darkness, his heart will be more evil than anyone else. It's really true. You still praise him? Mingwe Wu rolled her eyes, stomped her feet, and stared at Dustless angrily, and said angrily, "I caught that guy and beat him until his parents couldn't recognize him. That guy and Xiandong are orphans. I adopted them back then. They don't have parents." Dustless hugged his head, then looked at Mingwe Wu expectantly and asked, "Speaking of which, why didn't you take my head and ask for the antidote as he wanted?" "The point is I can't beat you," Mingwe Wu answered dejectedly. She was Dustless's disciple, and they were not on the same level at all. "Can you cure my sister's illness or not?" Mingwe Wu looked at Dustless worriedly and said in a threatening and warning tone, "If you can't cure her, I might really do as Vegas Summer asked. You just said that you're not my opponent, and now you want to fall out with me?" Dustless rolled his eyes at Mingwe Wu, then said indifferently, "Don't worry, leave it to me." "Cure?" Dustless naturally didn't have that ability, but he had other methods. "You can leave first." Dustless waved his hand. "I'm afraid your heart can't take my rough treatment." "Don't scare me. I've seen a lot of big scenes." Mingwe Wu refuted, then stared at Dustless, who didn't seem to be moved at all. She had no choice but to leave. "If something goes wrong, you won't be able to be a man for the rest of your life." Mingwe Wu raised her fist and looked at Dustless warningly, then blushed slightly. "You can't do anything excessive to my sister while I'm away, or I won't let you off." "Do something excessive?" Dustless had a strange expression and teased. "For example, of course, you're not allowed to take advantage of the situation." Mingwe Wu responded seriously, then said in a soft voice, "She's still young. If you really want to find someone to solve it, you can find me." When she said the last few words, Mingwe Wu's voice couldn't be heard all. Although she gave everyone the impression that she was the cheerful and bold type, it was really difficult for a girl to say such embarrassing words. "Since you said so, I won't be polite when the time comes." Staring at the graceful curves, Dustless smiled naughtily. Chapter 48. It was normal for Leon Hart to have complaints previously. After all, he was the one and only king of the Devil Realm. Just because of Dustless's words, he had to step down and get lost. This was too F***ing ridiculous. No matter how monstrous Wu Chen's strength was, at least Leo Hart had never seen it with his own eyes. This time, after experiencing it personally, he immediately understood the gap between them. The resentment in his heart towards Wu Chun also lessened a lot. A few minutes later, Kai woke up. When she saw Dustless, she immediately rushed over and could not help but burst into tears. Being betrayed by her family was indeed a heavy blow to a young girl who was not even 20 years old. After crying for half an hour, Kai finally fell asleep in Dustless's arms. After this incident, Dustless could feel that Kai had more trust in him. It was just like the saying, "A friend in need is a friend indeed." After carrying Kai back to her room to rest, Dustless turned around and left. On the way, he bumped into Leah and Leonhardt. Seeing the two of them, Dustless said bluntly, "Kai said that she has no interest in the Underworld King's position, so Leonhardt will continue to be the Underworld King. Consider it as repayment for saving her life." Really? Leonhardt was extremely excited. There is actually someone in this world who voluntarily gave up the Underworld King's position? What a miracle! Dustless nodded gently. This was indeed what Kai said before. So, the world is finally peaceful. Leah's little face showed a satisfied smile. She actually did not have the ambition to conquer the world. Everything was fine as long as everything was safe. However, Leah's beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of uneasiness when she suddenly thought of the people from the Pivotal Council who escaped. Those who escaped were all lunatics who would do anything to unify the underworld. They were forced into a desperate situation and would do anything crazy. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. An unprecedentedly violent explosion suddenly resounded throughout the underworld. The destructive shockwave spread without limit. Wherever it went, all the buildings were turned into ashes. Crack, 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 crack. Everyone immediately walked out of the room and looked up at the sky. There were cracks on the blue barrier. Something incredible has appeared. It can even shatter my barrier. Dustless had a look of surprise on his face. He looked towards the source of the tremors and saw that it was a huge magic array. This magic array exuded an ancient and desolate aura. It was filled with a murderous intent that wanted to destroy everything. When it descended on this continent, everyone shuddered as they felt the aura of death. Even powerhouses of Lionheart's caliber broke out in cold sweat as they stared at the large magic array with fear in their eyes. The heroic spirit king who commands all heroic spirits, demon god Chaos. Leonhardt clenched his fists and roared angrily. In order to defeat us, those old bastards from the Pivotal Council even used this trump card. Yeah, Devil God? What a scary name. Dustless lazily placed his hands in his pockets, a strange light flashing in his eyes as he gazed at the behemoth slowly emerging from the magic array. "You look so excited." Liao was speechless as she explained solemnly. "Demon God Chaos will continue to summon heroic spirits. Even if we defeat him in the end, the demonic realm will eventually become a wasteland. He won't have that chance." Dustless's body suddenly floated over and flew out of the barrier as he quickly flew towards Demon God Chaos. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A large number of light beams came from all directions as the destructive shockwaves cut through the void. The deafening sound was enough to tear a person's eardrums. Dustless did not evade. He faced the light beam and rushed out. Is that guy crazy? Isn't he afraid of being blown to pieces? Leonhardt was stunned. In his opinion, Dustless was courting death. Boom, boom, boom. The light beams came from all directions. The moment they came into contact with Dustless, there was a huge explosion that could destroy the sky. His body was blown to pieces, and there was not even a trace of him left. However, it was useless. As a user of the glint fruit, Dustless's body was instantly restored. He was still charging forward fearlessly. Roar, 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 roar. At the same time, Demon God Chaos had completely rushed out of the magic array. His huge body was like a demon, exuding an extremely evil aura of destruction. Behind him were a large number of purple worms that looked like enlarged versions of caterpillars. It was extremely disgusting. Roar, roar, roar. As if sensing Dustless's arrival, Demon God Chaos roared wildly as if he felt that he was being looked down upon by an ant and became angry out of humiliation. What's a mindless idiot like you trying to show off for? Dustless muttered to himself as if he was mocking the giant demon god Chaos in front of him. Roar, roar, roar. demon god Chaos seemed to understand Dustless's mockery and roared again. The purple tentacles behind him shot out like sharp blades. You're just an ant. Don't overestimate yourself. Dustless blinked slightly, and his surging eye power began to surge. He focused his sight on the purple tentacles and shouted, Amaterasu! Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, a ball of black fire suddenly descended. It was as powerful as a natural disaster and surrounded the disgusting tentacles, burning them quickly. After burning the disgusting tentacles, the Amaterasu did not disappear. The vines moved forward along the purple tentacles, and the black fire finally engulfed every part of demon god Chaos's body. A large ball of Amaterasu burned in the void, and a scream resounded through the world. Chapter 49. Capture her. Dustless swept a glance at Wildbone and no longer paid attention to her. She was already a turtle in a jar, and no one could save her. The remaining monsters of Nulion Group looked at each other and surrounded Wildbone and the other monsters. The situation was reversed in an instant. Remember, I want her alive. Dustless turned around and left. Nulion Group was already in ruins, and if he didn't rebuild it, he would have to sleep soundly. This kind of thing was a piece of cake for Dustless. As a user of the wood style, how could this kind of trivial matter be a problem for him? Boom, boom, boom. The ground cracked open, and all kinds of thick wood rose from the ground. All of them evolved into houses according to Dustless's will. In just a few minutes, a grander Nulion Group headquarters appeared in front of everyone. It was more majestic than before and was thousands of square meters in size. It was hard to imagine that it was built in just a few minutes. At the same time, Wildbone was also captured alive. As for the other cadres of Feathered Fox, they were all killed. The reason why she was kept alive was because she was relatively valuable. Sorry, Lord Dustless, one of them escaped. After that, Bull Demon ran over with an ashamed expression. He didn't even dare to lift his head. It's fine as long as it's not Wildbone and Violent Citigarba. Dustless didn't care. The other monsters were all small fries. Only those two guys were considered to have some status. I'm really sorry, the one that escaped was Violent Citigarba. Bull Demon's tone became even more ashamed. He lowered his head and looked like he was too ashamed to show his face. Hearing this, Dustless turned to look at Bull Demon. After a while, he said, It's fine if he escaped. He probably tipped off Feathered Fox. Then what should we do next? Bull Demon asked carefully. He was really afraid that Dustless would flip out if Violent Citigarba escaped. Tomorrow morning, we will immediately rush to the capital. At this moment in the capital, the flames of war were raging. The Flower Keyuan family was retreating. There is no need for Feathered Fox to do it herself. The monsters she brought were enough to easily annihilate the Flower Keyuan family. Especially after the demons in the wilderness submitted to the Feathered Fox, her strength increased by several levels. The Huakayuan family was no match for her at all. Their main camp was taken over by the Feathered Fox's subordinates. At this moment, in a barren mountain far away from the capital, the surviving Huakayuan clan was temporarily living there. Speaking of which, it was laughable that the world-famous Huakayuan clan had been chased out of the capital by the demons. They had no choice but to hide in the deep mountains and forests. But the current situation was like this. Feathered Fox's minions were too strong. She didn't even need to do it herself. Her minions were like fierce tigers, beating up the Flower Keyuan family. In the mountains, there were countless abandoned caves. The members of the Flower Keyuan family were hiding in them. The once prosperous Flower Keyuan family had completely fallen. There were only a few dozen of them left. The rest had all died in battle. More than half of the capital had been destroyed because of this war. It was enough to see how tragic this war was. There were countless casualties. Now the capital had become a paradise for monsters. When will that guy come to the capital? Flower King Yulaw stood outside a cave and looked at the distant sky. It was pitch black there. Raging demonic aura rushed into the sky. It was the capital. Ayaya. Little Yulaw, you seem to have a special liking for that monster. How strange. As on my OG, the Flower Kiyun family has begun to rely on a monster. A strange voice came from behind. Flower Kiyun Yulua gently turned her head. The person who entered her sight was Flower Kiyun Shuyuan, who was wearing a white Taoist robe. He had died 400 years ago. Now that he was able to see the light of day again, he was completely relying on the army destroyer used by Flower Kiyun Yulua. It's not that I have a special liking for that guy. I hate that hooligan very much. Flower Kiyun Yulua's little mouth gently rose, then helplessly said, "But other than him, who else can we rely on? Now the capital is already in chaos." What Yulua said is correct. Although I also hate that guy, but we can only rely on that dustless. If we only rely on our Flower Kiyun family, we will be done for. Long, who was leaning on a rock, had a gloomy expression. If they wanted to defeat Feathered Fox, there were two important things: Army Destroyer and Amikihimaru. But Amikihimaru had already been destroyed by Dustless, so they could only rely on him. Kyoto. After the expulsion of Flower Kiyun family, this place had already become a hell on earth. Humans were cruelly killed or directly eaten by demons. In a certain mansion in Kyoto, a large number of demons gathered here. This was the former headquarters of Flower Kiyun family. The cadres here were all the subordinates of Feathered Fox. Bang, 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 bang. Sitting at the head of the table, Feathered Fox, who had always been elegant and calm, unexpectedly smashed the jade table in front of her into pieces. Her pale cheeks were filled with hostility. Kwangu was caught. Ka. Feathered Fox tightly clenched her little hand. It seemed as if her bones were about to burst. All the demons looked at each other in dismay. Everyone was as quiet as cicadas in winter. They didn't even dare to breathe. They knew that Feathered Fox was really enraged. They couldn't help but break out in cold sweat for Dustless. If other people died, Feathered Fox might not even look at them. But Kwangu was different. Feathered Fox even treated him as her younger sister. Both of them had a deep sisterly relationship. If Kwangu was caught, it would not be an exaggeration to say that he had caused a great disaster. Chapter 50. In Dustless's view, if you have to find a peerless person, there is no doubt that it is definitely Uchiha Itachi. But then again, Tsunade turned her head and looked at Dustless with curiosity in her eyes and asked, "You and that old man reached a secret agreement. What did that old man have to impress you?" Tsunade's words immediately attracted the attention of Jiraiya and Orochimaru, and they turned their heads and looked at Dustless with great interest on their faces. "Since you know, don't ask more." Glancing at Tsunade, Dustless rolled his eyes and ruthlessly broke Tsunade's fantasy. He turned his head and looked straight ahead. "You." Hearing this, Tsunade's mouth suddenly twitched, and her eyes were burning with flames. She glanced at Dustless fiercely and turned her head angrily. She inevitably cursed Dustless in her heart. "This has nothing to do with you," Dustless said coldly to Tsunade. Sandame's chip is naturally the Manjikyu Sharingan with Uchiha Kagami. The premise for the birth of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is the transplant of a relative's Manjikyu Sharingan. Although Uchiha Kagami is also an Uchiha, he has nothing to do with Dustless, and transplanting his Manjikyu Sharingan will definitely cause rejection. "Stop! Something is wrong here." At this moment, Orochimaru suddenly shouted, awakening Dustless from his contemplation. Dustless suddenly froze and subconsciously looked at Orochimaru with a dignified face. The scene in front of him was quite strange. Whether it was Orochimaru, Jiraiya, or Tsunade, all three of them were cautious and vigilant, and they were looking at the surrounding environment from the corner of their eyes. Dustless was confused and didn't know what was going on. "Haven't you noticed yet? We've been surrounded," Jiraiya said with a gloomy face. His eyes were full of murderous intent. He squinted his eyes and emitted a cold light. It was extremely terrifying. The murderous intent all over his body spread out like a flood. The scene suddenly became extremely oppressive. Dustless lifted his gaze and spread it forward meticulously. He swept past all the substances in the eyeball, but his face was still filled with confusion. "Are you really a Kage-level powerhouse? Maybe your strength is like that, but How could Tsunade let go of such a good opportunity? She was the first to attack Dustless with a face full of contempt and ridicule. Seeing that Tsunade was attacking Dustless, Orochimaru frowned and looked at her with dissatisfaction and said in a deep voice, "Now is not the time to joke around. Recently, it hasn't rained here for a long time. It's very dry." Orochimaru's eyes looked around him as he spoke in an unusually indifferent manner. Immediately, the corners of his mouth curled into a dense sneer. At a glance, the surrounding land and mountains appeared to be in a withered state. The ground was even covered with sinister cracks. In such a dry and hot environment, there was indeed a puddle of water in front of them. I'm sorry, this is my negligence." Dustless smiled awkwardly. He suddenly realized that something was wrong. He scolded himself for not being tempered enough. He wasn't as experienced as Orochimaru. After all, Dustless didn't even go to the shinobi school. Except for his strength, he didn't know anything about shinobi. Staring at the scattered water stains in front of him, Orochimaru smiled coldly. His pale face was full of murderous intent, like an Azura from hell. TSK, Orochimaru is worthy of being one of the Sannin. His insight is really extraordinary. A cold laughter suddenly sounded, accompanied by the sound of water droplets flowing. He suddenly looked up and saw that the large water stains in front of him were all flowing rapidly. In an instant, hundreds of figures appeared. The Mist Village. Looking at the group of figures in front of him, Dustless had doubts in his heart. He frowned unconsciously. If he remembered correctly, the battle with the mist was in the future. "Don't you know how to destroy the plot?" Staring at the fog that suddenly appeared inexplicably in front of him, Wu Chun was speechless. He didn't remember that the so-called plot had been shattered by him, a professional plot destroyer. "You guys, it seems like you're going to die." Orochimaru smiled cruelly as the wrinkles in the corner of his eyes kept twitching. He had already sentenced the mist to death in his heart. Orochimaru sneered again and again. The Mizukage was too naive and ignorant to think that he could defeat them with a group of weaklings. The 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist? Jiraiya was surprised as he looked at the 7 leading figures. The 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist were quite famous in the ninja world, but their old faces quickly turned cold. Aside from Dustless, the Sannin and the 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist weren't in the same dimension. The former could crush the latter, even if they had the advantage in numbers. "Scram if you don't want to die before I decide to kill you." Jiraiya stepped forward and stared at the mist ninjas. Numbers were nothing in front of absolute strength. Humph! One of the 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist also stepped forward and looked at Jiraiya with murderous intent. He looked at Jiraiya, who was much shorter than him, and sneered. Using the blood and lies of the Sannin as stepping stones to become famous, it's best. Dustless looked at the burly man who had spoken and ignored him. However, the young man beside the Watermelon Mountain River Ghost had attracted Dustless's attention. He had a shark face and a ferocious expression. He looked quite young and tall. He was much taller than the malnourished Dustless. Especially his beast-like eyes, no one dared to look down on him. Kisame? This is interesting." With a faint smile on his face, Dustless looked back and recognized the young man at a glance. He was the only one in the world who looked like a shark. "Since you want to die so much, I will reluctantly send you to heaven." With a ferocious smile, Orochimaru pounced forward. His snake eyes were full of killing intent as he rushed straight towards the pufferfish ghost. Seeing this, Jiraiya and Tsunade also rushed toward the mist village with murderous intent. Chapter 51. A hint of struggle flashed across Isuna's pretty face. Over the past few months, she felt that her soul had been corrupted by Jango Aoi. Wait a moment. Isuna had no choice but to follow Jango Aoi's instructions and leave. If she refused, this old man would beat her up again and humiliate her. The wise doctor in the past had gradually been driven crazy by Dustless. Sometimes he had a bad temper and was no different from a mad dog, biting whoever he saw. "You will be obedient." Django Ottoy said with a fake smile, like a demon that could speak. The Eugen Wanderer felt his hair stand on end. He felt that this old man was a monster in human skin. After a while, the unconscious man and woman were brought over by Isuna. They don't deserve to be with me. I knocked them both out. The moment the Eugen Wanderer saw the two of them, his pupils suddenly shrank, and he shouted anxiously, "Father, mother, you are despicable scum. Cut the crap." Django Aoi glanced at the Eugen Wanderer coldly and urged, "Call Chiffon and ask her to kill Dustless. Otherwise, I will break your parents' legs first. You better cooperate." As soon as he finished speaking, Django Aoi ran over and kicked the Eugen Wanderer's father in the stomach, causing him to wail in pain. "Don't hurt them. I agree to your conditions." Forced to make a choice, the Eugen Wanderer compromised in despair. There was no other way. How could he watch his parents be killed? That was absolutely impossible. Time flew, and 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. During this period of time, everything was calm and tranquil as usual. However, Wuchen noticed that someone had changed. Chiffon, who was usually meticulous in his work, had become absent-minded. He was often absent-minded in class and looked absent-minded. In his impression, Chiffon was meticulous and serious in everything she did. On this day, Chiffon came to take care of Lucy as usual. Perhaps it was because they were the same kind, but Lucy was very close to Chiffon. After all, they were both legendary Pandora. Perhaps there was a resonance in their souls. The usually cold Lucy would occasionally laugh like a silver bell. "Teacher Dustless, I want to take Lucy out for a walk today," Chiffon said to Dustless abruptly after helping Lucy put on her clothes. "Go for a walk? Can't we do it in school?" Dustless, who was reading on the sofa, raised his eyebrows and hesitated. If a legendary Pandora went berserk, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Forget it. Go, go, go. Remember to be careful." Wu Chun originally wanted to refuse, but when he saw Lucy looking at him with an expectant look, his heart softened in the end. Upon hearing Dustless's agreement, Lucy immediately revealed a bright smile that was as warm as the sun. "Speaking of which, you seem to be a little absent-minded recently. You're also in a daze during class." Chiffon. Dustless put down his book and asked Chiffon, "Is it because of that Reaper of yours?" "I've heard about him from Y. Lisabeth. He hasn't returned to class yet. If there's anything I can help you with, just let me know. After all, you helped me solve Lucy's problem." As expected, I can't hide anything from Teacher Dustless. Chiffon sighed inwardly and shook her head to indicate that she wasn't. Only her expression was a little stiff. "Something happened at home. My parents' health is getting worse." Chiffon found a reason to deal with it. Jingo Aoki had threatened her to kill Dustless. To be honest, she couldn't do it. Chiffon thought of other strategies to solve the problem. "I'll go to your house to take a look. I have a unique understanding of medical skills." Dustless's sudden recommendation caught Chiffon off guard. She hurriedly refused. "It's just a common cold. I'll be fine after taking some medicine." "Is that so? Then send my regards to your parents. I hope they can recover soon. It's getting colder now. More and more people are catching colds." Dustless didn't talk nonsense. If he continued, it would only make things worse. However, a sharp glint flashed in his eyes. The more Chiffon said this, the more it meant that there was a big problem. After about half an hour, Chiffon and Lucy finished their meal. They changed their clothes and went out. They were beauties with good figures. Therefore, when they went out, they attracted a lot of attention. Chiffon was fine, but she was surprised when she saw Lucy. During this period, Dustless didn't stay idle. He went to the third year to find Elizabeth, but she wasn't there. He had no choice but to come to the girls' dormitory. As soon as Dustless appeared, it caused a sensation. Many girls rushed to surround him. Dustless, who was squeezed in the crowd, was even molested. In the end, he had to use invisible clone to deal with it. These years, the students are getting crazier. I thought that the seniors would be more rational. I didn't expect them to be the ones who can't control themselves. Dustless, who escaped from the disaster, hid under the shade of a tree and gasped. If he left later, his clothes would have been torn apart. Your embarrassed look is really interesting. TSK TSK, I didn't expect you to have such a cute side. It turns out that you're not invincible. You didn't run away from a group of female students. How funny. Huh. Suddenly, a figure appeared in his eyes. After seeing this person, Dustless frowned slightly. Lana Lynching, facing the girl's ridicule, Dustless's eyes were calm. He wasn't angry at all. Those are my students. Have you ever seen a teacher fight with her students? Besides, if they treat me like that, it means that I'm very popular. If you think that you can anger me by saying that, you're too funny, Lana. Chapter 52. The small amount of information obtained from the bundle of Shao indicated that this was an organization established during the Second World War. It didn't belong to any country, nor did it have any religious beliefs. No one even knew where it originated from. As for the organization's internal scale, purpose, and personnel, this series of secrets was even more unknown. Inside the IS Academy, Dustless sat in his office. There was a thick stack of documents on the table in front of him. This was the first batch of documents that had been delivered. The content was almost all reports on the IS industry. However, the useful information was pitifully little or none. Currently, one thing was certain. This organization was very jealous of the advanced IS and even wanted to take it for themselves. According to the news from the police, during the autopsy, the IS on Weaverban was gone. It was probably taken by the organization. Dustless looked up blankly and murmured, "That idiot is so naive." The white system was actually his protection. Now that the white system is in their hands for the terrorists, Weaverban has no value. Therefore, it was no big deal to kill him. Yuan Wu, how's the preparation for the thing I asked you to do? Dustless's eyes fell on the head of the girl on the sofa. She laid there lazily. Perhaps because it was too hot, her collar was casually open and the huge J-ball was about to jump out. However, with the terrorists bothering him, Dustless really didn't have the mood to appreciate this beautiful scene. "I've prepared everything. Don't worry." Yuan Wu naughtily stuck out her tongue and winked at Dustless. Then, her face showed a rare look of worry. "But are you serious?" Now the whole world is in an uproar. "Of course." Dustless gently nodded and immediately frowned. "It's just an IS competition. Is it as exaggerated as you say it is? If it was a normal IS competition, it would definitely not attract attention. However, the prize for the final winner is too rich. Not to mention others, even I am tempted." She pouted and narrowed her beautiful eyes. "The winner is actually a fourth-generation machine, personally built by Dr. Xiao Zhizhi. How many people are not tempted? This is only part of the reward." Dustless smiled mysteriously. He opened the drawer and placed some blueprints on the table. "Take a look. Although the fourth-generation console is good, it's not as important as these things. It's just a few pieces of paper. What's so strange about it?" "Even more," Ming Wu scoffed. However, out of curiosity, he still picked it up and took a look. Before she had time to read the content, she only saw a few eye-catching words on the design page. Her expression instantly froze, and her lips opened and closed several times. In the end, she exclaimed in shock, Hearing this, Dustless held his head with both hands and teased, "Since when did the eloquent you become a stutterer? Isn't it just the fifth-generation IS design? Look at how shocked you are. Isn't it just the fifth-generation design? Don't you know what this means?" Hearing this, even more panicked. This guy didn't know the hunger of a starving man. Some countries in the world were still in the third generation of IS. Even countries like France were still in the second generation. The fourth generation reward for this IS competition was already ridiculous enough. Now, even the fifth generation design was given out. "Are you saying that this is also the reward for this competition?" He shook his head vigorously and forced himself to calm down. He asked suspiciously, "The reward this time is too generous. Once the news gets out, I'm afraid it will attract the attention of criminals. At that time, the losses will outweigh the gains. I want the outside world to go crazy." Dustless smiled coldly and said, "If they want to destroy people, the ancestors will go crazy. The current target of the vanquished nation machine industry is all kinds of advanced IS. If they know that I gave out the 4th generation and 5th generation IS designs as the reward, the poisonous snakes hiding in the dark will definitely jump out. In front of this huge bait, I don't believe they can turn a blind eye. For Mir by Shurgia, the terrorists used all their tricks. With the 4th generation and 5th generation design, the terrorists of the vanquished nation machine industry would definitely not be able to resist. Lure the snake out of its hole. Even more immediately understood Dustless's intention. Although the plan was not bad, the risk was not small. IS Academy would definitely become the target. Don't worry, you are the president of the student council. Just do as I say. Dustless comforted him with confidence. Let's set the time for 7 days later. No matter what, I'm still against giving out the 5th generation IS design. If it doesn't work, we can find a fake one. Even more still insisted on his opinion. If it really falls into the hands of the terrorists, it might change the world. Even more loudly, even more seriously looked at Dustless. You don't have to worry about this. Dustless said slowly, the 5th generation design is only a part. This was given to me by Shu. Even that guy couldn't draw out the entire design. Do you think other people can? This, even more's heart skipped a beat. He thought for a bit, changed his mind, and silently nodded in agreement. Indeed, if the bundle of Shao, the pioneer of IS, couldn't design something, it was even more impossible for others to do so. Although the design in front of him was real, it was a useless piece of paper to some extent because it was impossible to create with the current technology of mankind. If it was possible, Shao would have created it a long time ago and used Dustless as a test subject. Let's see how long you can endure. Dustless's dark eyes flashed with a mysterious light. Just as Even More said, this was inviting the wolf into the house. Chapter 53. Is that so? Your judgment is very wise. I think so too. Dustless chuckled. Just as Ox Ghost said, capturing that female fox to warm the bed was too flattering for her. Ayaya. It seems that there is still one alive. Looking from afar, there was actually a figure struggling. His whole body was pierced through like a hornet's nest, and blood was constantly flowing out. The person in front, quickly report your name. A deafening sound came from afar. With this shout, everyone, including Dustless, was stupefied. Looking around, it was the demon leader called Hidden Master Bai. Ungrateful guy. How can he know the name of Master Dustless? Ox Ghost's eyes flashed with cold light. With a clang sound, he pulled out his katana. I will deal with that guy. Wait. Dustless's cheeks showed a faint smile. This guy is very principled. He has to wait until I report my name. I think he is quite cute. Cute? Ox Ghost was speechless. He couldn't understand Dustless's thinking at all. The other party was the cadre of Feathered Fox. He was quite powerful and commanded nearly 10,000 demons. How could this be called cute? Go and capture him alive. Dustless ordered Ox Ghost. The latter just nodded slightly. Hidden Master Bai's whole body was pierced through by the Yasakani no Magatama just now. Now he didn't have the energy to deal with Ox Ghost, so he was captured alive in just a few rounds and brought to Dustless. This guy was covered in blood, and his flesh was badly mutilated. Looking carefully, there were dozens of holes in his wounds. But even so, Hidden Master Bai still didn't retreat and was very loyal, which made Dustless look at him in a new light. You are very brave. It is Feathered Fox's blessing to have a subordinate like you. After seeing Hidden Master Bai, Dustless said slowly, Don't you want to know my name? My name is Dustless. Dustless? Although he had heard of this name a long time ago, Hidden Master Bai was still shocked. He asked in surprise, You're the one who killed Devil Child Pill and captured Kwangu? Other than Lord Dustless, who else would have such courage? Ox Ghost said disdainfully. On the other hand, Dustless looked at Ghost Bull with a strange look. This kid was getting better at bootlicking. Lord Feathered Fox said that if any demons encounter Dustless, we are to pass on a message. Hidden Lord Bai looked up at Dustless and said, You'd better not let anything happen to Wild Bone, or he'll eat you alive. Ayaya. How scary. How can a woman like her warm my bed? I should just stomp her to death. Dustless pretended to be scared. All right, you can go now. Dustless waved his hand. The sudden decision made Ghost Ox and Hidden Masterby stunned. Lord Dustless, are you going to let this guy go? Ghost Ox dug his ears, thinking that he had misheard. This guy was an enemy, a loyal follower of Feathered Fox. You must be joking. Hidden Masterby also looked at Dustless in disbelief. Don't misunderstand. I just think you're cute. Moreover, Feathered Fox will lose no matter what. You won't change anything. Dustless replied calmly. It's not that Feathered Fox is weak. Her only fatal weakness is that she chose the wrong enemy. Are you looking down on me? Hidden Masterby looked at Dustless unhappily. His whole body was wreaking havoc. He tried to teach this guy a lesson, but a burning pain spread all over his body. The Yasukani no Magatama had already pierced through Hidden Masterby's body. However, this kid was not destined to die yet. Some of his important organs were not damaged. So what if I look down on you? Do you think you're qualified to be compared with Lord Dustless? Ghost Ox asked coldly. This guy was too insensible. Forgive this kid, and he still didn't know how to be grateful. If there's nothing else, I'll throw you down. This spaceship is too small to accommodate you. Dustless stood up and walked over slowly. I still have something to say. Hidden Masterby quickly said, I heard that Feathered Fox captured Blossoming School's Yulua alive. She also said that if you dare to mess around with Wildbone, she will deal with Blossoming School's Yulua in the same way. Hearing this, Dustless's expression was rather strange. He couldn't help but mutter, if I sleep with that kid called Wildbone, does Feathered Fox plan to do the same? But does she have the ability to do so? Hidden Masterby and Ghost Ox's cheeks twitched. If Dustless played like this, Feathered Fox really couldn't take revenge. I'll be back. After taking a deep look at Dustless, Hidden Masterby jumped down from the spaceship. Lord Dustless, what should we do next? Ghost Ox asked. He knew that Blossoming School's Yulua and Dustless's relationship was not bad. What else can we do? This time, let's be the savior and destroy the capital. Dustless looked at the dark sky in the distance. It was the direction of the capital. Demon Chi was soaring to the sky. Even the sky had turned dark. The dark clouds were oppressive, penetrating the endless despair. A team of a few hundred demons wanted to destroy Feathered Fox, who occupied the entire capital. It sounded like a fool's dream. After all, after the demons from the distant wilderness joined Feathered Fox, they occupied the entire capital. The number of demons under Feathered Fox's command reached a terrifying number of hundreds of thousands. Even at the peak of Nuliang Group, there were only tens of thousands of demons. In terms of numbers, it was 10 times more than Nuliang Group. Not to mention the battle. The most basic data was enough to make people despair. However, after witnessing Dustless's rage, Ghost Ox and the others' confidence skyrocketed. After all, he had summoned an army of 10 trillion undead. Even if he didn't reach this number, he could still completely crush Feathered Fox's underlings. Chapter 54. These guys are so strong. Who are they? Elizabeth stood up with difficulty. Her body was about to fall apart, and she did not have the energy to fight anymore. These people were too strong, and their strength was overwhelming. Her beautiful eyes stared at the people approaching her. This was the first time in her life that she tasted despair. These mysterious people of unknown origins, just one of them was already too much for her to handle. If they were to gang up on her, Elizabeth would be beaten up badly. I've never heard of them before. Elizabeth's usually wise eyes were filled with confusion. If these mysterious people were to be exposed, they would definitely rewrite the world's Pandora rankings. If it was Dustless, he would definitely be able to recognize that these people were Sakura's teammates from the Heaven Court, as well as the candidates for the Valkyrie Project. Who are you guys? Wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth, Elizabeth gritted her teeth and asked, Who gave you the order to brazenly invade the Seeger Academy? You don't have the right to know. One of the Valkyrie coldly refused to answer. In short, everyone who is related to Wu Chun is our target and must be killed. Regardless of whether their relationship is good or bad, they must be executed. For example, if you want to hate someone, Go to hell and hate that guy for offending someone he shouldn't have offended. Hearing this, Elizabeth's face turned pale. It turned out that she was not the only one who had suffered misfortune. For example, Shadalisa was probably doomed as well. These words are really scary. Anyone who is close to me, regardless of whether they are friends or enemies, must be killed. This is indeed the style of that old man, Aoi Django. A lazy voice suddenly sounded, and the Valkyries frowned. Only Elizabeth felt like she had broken out of a cage. She was very familiar with this voice and knew that it was Dustless. "You're that Dustless?" the Valkyrie with glasses asked, and then took the initiative to introduce herself. "I'm Franca Portia, and I'm not interested in listening to your self-introduction." Dustless's face was filled with solemnity as he spat out a bone-chilling breath. "Get lost before I'm really angry. Take that Heaven Court Sakura with you. Remember, get lost far away and don't appear in my sight." "Teacher Dustless, you..." These words immediately caused Elizabeth to be astonished. She found it hard to believe. In her impression, Dustless was rarely so serious, especially when he flipped out at girls. Right now, it was as if he was a different person. "What did you say?" The Valkyries were furious and looked at Dustless with resentment. They were used to being high and mighty. Talking to Dustless was already showing them mercy. This bastard actually told them to scram. He was simply too arrogant. "Stay away, Elizabeth." Dustless stood in front of Elizabeth and said straightforwardly, "There may be a lot of noise later. It won't be good if it affects you. Run for your life." I understand." Elizabeth nodded obediently and quickly stood up to leave. As she jogged away, she did not forget to turn her head to look at Dustless. He was especially scary in this state. Elizabeth even had a feeling that the usually gentle teacher was really angry now. Maybe it's because of Shadalisa, Elizabeth guessed. Previously, the Valkyries had said that anyone related to Dustless, good or bad, would be wiped out. Obviously, Shadalisa and her sister, Violet, were also the Valkyries' prey. That was why Dustless had shown such a scary expression. "The few of you will die a horrible death." Dustless's eyes were bloodshot. In a hoarse voice, he said, "I gave you a chance to escape, but you didn't cherish it. Then all of you will die here. Watch your tone, you bastard." One of the Valkyries angrily glared at Dustless. Her name was Kristinevra, and she came from England. She had a bad temper to begin with, and after being repeatedly looked down upon by Dustless, she couldn't hold back her anger and swooped down. Her speed was so fast that it was fleeting. Seeing this, Dustless gently raised his right foot. Murderous aura burst out of his body, and the light on his foot gathered as he kicked out. Lightspeed kick. The speed of light was so fast that Kristinevra did not even have time to react before she was engulfed by the destructive light. Boom, boom, boom. Blazing flames burst out of the girl's body. Her flesh and blood were instantly burned to ashes, and she died on the spot. The flames spread, and the void boiled, burning everything around her. What a vicious move. The other Valkyries' expressions changed drastically. Realizing the danger, they hurriedly retreated. Not to mention being kicked, just the flames alone were enough to burn them to death. If they tried to get close, they would definitely meet a tragic end. The fate of Kristinevra, who was swallowed by the fireball, was self-evident. She was afraid that not even her bones were left. She was kicked to explode by Dustless. Not even the remains of her body were left. Everything was incinerated. "You bastard!" Their good sister was instantly killed by Dustless, and the other Valkyries were furious. They gritted their teeth and wanted nothing more than to kill Dustless immediately. "You all have this expression of hatred. It seems that you have to die. You have been brainwashed by Django Aoi too deeply. There is no saving you." When it was time to destroy flowers, Dustless would not be merciful. These people were loyal to Django Aoi, and if he let them go, they would definitely seek revenge on Shataraza and the others. At that time, they would definitely cause a lot of trouble. It was better to eliminate them now. Heavenly Hand. The eye power of Rinnegan Sharingan was launched, and Wu Chun disappeared silently, crossing layers of space, and appeared behind Valkyrie like a ghost, with a cold face. Chapter 55. What should we do? Red Rider looked at Sieg and asked, "Now there are only two of us left." Sieg's eyes reddened as he thought of the Black Rider, who died tragically. The way he looked at Dustless became exceptionally hostile and bloodshot. What else can we do? Of course, we have to die together. This guy killed my best friend, and I can't forgive him. You mean Althofo, right? Dustless also understood the conflict between the two. Although that guy was indeed killed by Atlanta, I think it's still necessary to clarify some things. First of all, Dustless cleared his throat and explained Althofo was dissatisfied with the Black Lancer's order and was tired of it. He had nothing to do with this Holy Grail war, so he deliberately died in the hands of Atlanta. Sieg's eyes flickered when he heard the words, and he looked a little surprised. He died on his own. He didn't know about this. But no matter what, you killed him. This is a fact. Don't try to quibble, Sieg gritted his teeth and said. I don't intend to quibble with you. If you want revenge, just come. But I have to remind you that you can't do anything by yourself. You're just a clone who has been blessed by the gods. Even if you had 10 lives, you wouldn't be able to overturn the heavens, let alone someone like you. Dustless attacked harshly, and at the same time, he stared at Red Rider with glowing eyes. Don't look down on me. Sieg's handsome face suddenly twisted. He wanted to refute, but he couldn't speak. After all, Dustless was indeed too strong. Me alone? Are you blind? I still have Rid. Poochie. A bright red head rolled in front of Sieg. His pupils instantly dilated. This bloody head belonged to Rider. At the moment of his death, his eyes were still open, full of unwillingness. He was a hero with high divinity, but how did he die unknowingly? He didn't even have the time to react. He was instantly killed by Dustless. Now, it shouldn't be a problem to say that you're alone, right? Dustless asked with a chuckle. The heaven-gathering clouds, sword in his hand, was still dripping with blood. One of his eyes turned into Rinnegan. Just now, he used the power of Heavenly Hand to appear behind the Red Rider and killed him. You're just a clone. You should be thanking your luck for being able to have the last laugh. Of course, it's all because of that damned protagonist aura. But you're not satisfied with this and actually want to challenge me. You reap what you sow. You have to bear the karma that you've buried yourself. Dustless slowly walked forward with the sky cluster cloud sword in hand. Every time he took a step forward, Sieg would become extremely nervous and involuntarily take a few steps back. I'm not afraid of you. Sieg let out a long roar, and at the same time, his body erupted with a burst of red light, and an astonishing magic power burst out from his body. There's such a magic power. Mordred was slightly shocked. He was very surprised. It was already unprecedented for a clone to have such a huge magic power, like a heroic spirit. When a magic power dissipated, Sieg also underwent a tremendous change. He had already turned into the original Black Saber, Sieg Fei. Let Dustless deal with the rest. Artoria elegantly walked to Mordred's side. The latter looked at her absent-mindedly, staring at the face that was so close to him. It was so unreal, but all of this was real. Mordred's heart was filled with mixed feelings. In the past, Mordred wielded a butcher's knife against Artoria. In the end, both of them fell. Right now, Mordred's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Father. After the corner of his mouth twitched for a while, Mordred finally opened his mouth and said in a low voice, "Maybe you were right back then. I'm not suitable to be a king. At the beginning of this Holy Grail War, I met my master lion, Jiegjeli. He was very outstanding, and he taught me a lot of things. I'm very grateful to him. In this life, most people don't get what they want. I'm already very satisfied to be able to fly like a bird on the battlefield and follow my father's back closely. As for becoming a king, this road is too difficult and lonely. It's not suitable for me." Mordred seemed to be enlightened. He lowered his head and said the truest thoughts in his heart. "You." Mordred looked at Artoria nervously and asked very anxiously, "Father, you must hate me very much, right? It was normal for Mordred to think so. If it weren't for her, Artoria wouldn't have died, and Britain might not have been destroyed. Everything was because of her. However, what father would hate his own child? Artoria responded with a smile, and then did something that made Mordred stunned. She took a step forward and rubbed Mordred's golden hair with her little hand. As she rubbed, she muttered, "No wonder Wu Chun, that fellow, always likes to rub other people's heads. This feels really good." "You." Mordred was stunned. Her eyes were wide open. Was this still the mature, steady, and serious King Arthur? Could it be that Dustless is trying to fool me with a fake? Mordred even had such a thought in her mind, but she quickly shook her head and denied it. Even though she was in the body of a heroic spirit, she could still feel the blood connection. The Artoria in front of her was her father. Chapter 56. If Sakura was smart, she would definitely learn her lesson after this incident. She would not dare to take revenge on Dustless in the future. It was not a bad thing to live in seclusion. If she came to challenge him again, she would be courting death. At that time, Dustless would definitely make her understand how foolish it was to live. Isn't Teacher Dustless looking for Chiffon? Elizabeth, who was being hugged by Dustless, couldn't help but ask. It was so awkward that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. She had no choice but to find a topic to divert attention. "Don't worry. I left special spatial coordinates on them. As long as they meet Django AOI, I will sense it and capture them all." A cold glint flashed in Dustless's eyes. At the end of the day, he still had to thank Django AOI for this incident. If it weren't for him, Dustless might not have been able to find the old man, even if he spent more time. It was best that Django AOI was willing to jump out himself. At the same time, Chiffon brought Lucy to the agreed meeting place. Django Aoi's initial condition was for Chiffon to assassinate Dustless, but Chiffon wasn't willing to do so. After some bargaining, Django Aoi accepted Chifeng's condition of sending Lucy back. They even agreed on a meeting place. This was an abandoned factory far away from the city center. It was in the wilderness and no one cared about it. It was a paradise for flying insects and beasts. "Where is he?" Chiffon and Lucy stood together. The old man in front of them was stooped and his eyes were sunken. His skin was like the bark of an old tree, and his face was full of deep wrinkles. This person was Django Aoi. During this period of time, when he was going against Dustless, he did not eat or drink well and had aged a lot. In addition, he was already old, and his body was getting weaker and weaker. He might die one day. Django Aoi stared at Chiffon with mixed emotions. Chiffon was also a legendary level Pandora, but something had gone wrong during an experiment back then, causing her to be traumatized. In the end, she could not bear the torture and ran out of Django Aoi's laboratory. When he thought about how Chiffon was now Dustless's subordinate, Django Aoi's heart ached. He had created Chiffon. What was the difference between him and her father? "Tell me, why are you helping Dustless? You should know about that guy's evil deeds. Wuchen hurt Kinzuya. He is your nephew. Why are you still helping Wuchen?" Aoi Django looked at Chiffon bitterly. Tears flowed down his face as he spoke. "Put away your acting skills. You know that I'm different from Lucy and the others. The other legendary level Pandoras are closer to Maria in nature, and I'm 99% human. After experiencing so many things, I already have my own opinions. Do you think I'll believe your nonsense?" "That's right," Lucy said with a smile. She didn't know what to say, but she didn't know what to say. Upon hearing this, Django Aoi was furious. His tears stopped as he said angrily, "Chiffon, no matter what, there's one thing you can't deny. I'm your creator, your father, and Kinzuya is your nephew. I'm your daughter?" Chiffon seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. He opened his eyes in an instant and stared at Aoi Django. He pointed at Lucy beside him and unceremoniously exposed Aoi Django's nonsense. "Are you treating us as weapons or as daughters? Since I'm your daughter, why did some technicians in your laboratory say that I was a puppet? That included Lucy and the others. If you really treated them as your daughters, why did you seal Lucy and the others? Which father would seal his own daughter?" I this. Jingo Aoi stammered for a long time, but could not explain the reason. He could not help but feel a little angry. Weren't all Pandoras with intelligence problems? Why was Shifeng so eloquent that he was speechless? Fortunately, Cassandra and Lucy are different from Shifeng. Jingo Aoi heaved a sigh of relief and suddenly felt lucky. If the other Pandoras were as smart as Shifeng, he might not have been able to control them. Let's end the chat here. Call Jinren out. I brought Lucy here. From now on, we don't owe each other anything. Shifeng's tone was very cold, like a machine. If anyone who knew or saw her like this, they would definitely be shocked. Sorry, that's impossible. Stop dreaming. She's just a test subject. Since they had already shed all pretense of cordiality, Jingo Aoi did not hide it anymore. He immediately changed his expression. If you don't kill Dustless, I won't hand her over to you. It was because of the words a test subject that Lucy felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. She bit her lower lip with her silver teeth. Shameless guy, are you going back on your word? Shifeng revealed a rare expression of anger. She clenched her fists and a strong aura erupted from her body. Don't force me to attack. You have no chance of winning. She did not expect Jingo Aoi to be so shameless. When Lucy was captured by Dustless, Jingo Aoi was burning with anxiety. Later on, he used a series of methods to threaten Shifeng. At first, he wanted her to kill Dustless and then release the hostage, Eugen Wanderer. However, Shifeng refused. Later on, the condition changed to bringing Lucy back to Jingo Aoi. Now that she was here, this old man actually went back on his word. Before they met, Shifeng still had a glimmer of hope for Jingo Aoi. However, after seeing the nature of this old man, she completely lost all hope. So what if I go back on my word? Jingo Aoi sneered. His eyes flickered with a sinister light. He was cunning and cruel. Shifeng, not only can your ruler, the Eugen Wanderer, not leave. Since you're here, don't even think about leaving. Do you think I'm not prepared? You really think too kindly of me. The moment he finished speaking, two figures appeared behind Jingo Aoi. Chapter 57. To the current Dustless, this unprecedented stimulation surpassed everything else. Originally, he didn't have much interest in this woman, but now that Leibecca was behaving so well, his interest was completely piqued. If I had a camera right now, I really want to take a short video for Yashur Blake to see Dustless thought in an extremely vulgar manner. After who knew how long, Leibecca grunted, and some unknown liquid dripped from the corner of her mouth. She gave Dustless a few glances of reproach. Very good. From now on, you're mine. After finishing, Dustless felt refreshed. He stared at Leibecca meaningfully and said, that brat Yashur Blake has already been blacklisted by me. If you continue to interact with him, it will only make me hate you more and more. In that case, I hope you can understand what I mean. After saying that, Dustless's face revealed a kind of haze. Not only was it a warning, but there was also a trace of killing intent. Since this kind of relationship had already happened, Dustless was naturally determined not to allow LaBelle and Yashur Blake to have any contact. Understand. Leibecca wiped the residue from the corner of her mouth and helplessly nodded in agreement. Although she was more or less unhappy, this was the nature of the world. The fate of the weak could only be decided by the strong. After waiting for Dustless to return, Veronica and Sylvia arrived. The two women's expressions were two extremes. Veronica's face was dark, and her small fists were clenched tightly. It was as if she had guessed the bad luck of a dog poop. This made Dustless completely confused. Was this woman having a stroke again? Sylvia's expression was also unprecedentedly strange. This little girl lowered her head. It would have been fine if she was just lowering her head, but the strange thing was that she would occasionally raise her head and use a shy gaze to look at Dustless. Seeing the two women's strange expressions, Dustless felt even more strange. I say, the two of you. Dustless's voice paused slightly, and he directly said, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't give me this. That old man just sent an order. It's about us sisters. Veronica was the first to speak. There was a trace of displeasure in her tone. She said disdainfully, "Let us two sisters marry you." Sylvia lowered her head the moment she finished speaking. Really? Although Dustless was a little surprised, it was only for a short moment. There was nothing strange about it. Many years ago, the king had this plan, but at that time, Dustless was not interested. First of all, the two sisters were too young at the time, especially Sylvia, who was only a little kid at the time. Then what do you two plan to do? Dustless drank a cup of water and asked in a gentle tone. Hearing that Wu Chen's voice suddenly softened, Veronica snorted coldly. Don't think that by pretending to be gentle, we will marry you. It's simply a dream. King. Hearing that, the veins on Dustless's forehead bulged. He almost could not help but go up and teach this disobedient girl a lesson. Didn't he always speak like this? When had he ever shouted? Then what about you? Dustless looked at Sylvia. The child's face instantly turned as red as a big apple. If it was in the past, Veronica would definitely have rejected him, because at that time, she still wanted to marry Sylvia to her loyal subordinate, Gulian. You don't want to either, right? Dustless looked at Sylvia's embarrassed expression and asked indifferently. No. Sylvia hurriedly shook her head, afraid that Dustless would be angry. She explained, it's just that Dustless was embarrassed. He had wasted half a day, and this little girl did not say anything. It was probably because she was saved by Yashur Blake when she was young, right? It was just that Sylvia did not know the truth yet. If she knew that the child who saved her was Yashur Blake, and that he was standing against her, who knew what she would think? Since both of you are not willing, then that's fine. Dustless was not angry, and said extremely casually, I am not interested in this either. This way, everyone will be happy, and both of us will not have any bam. Outrageous. Before Dustless could finish speaking, the bad-tempered Veronica slammed the table angrily and glared at Dustless furiously. She questioned in an unfriendly tone, What right do you have to refuse? F***CK. Hearing that, Dustless was instantly dumbfounded. Mother F***er, what kind of logic is this? It's fine if you refuse me, but I can't refuse you at all. This is worse than a bandit. Do you think that us two sisters are not worthy of you? Thinking of this, a cold light condensed in Veronica's eyes, and one of her hands even reached for the large sword hanging at her waist. Let me remind you, it's best not to use force. Have you forgotten what happened in the past? Dustless reminded with an evil smile. Why don't we review it again? Oomph. Veronica's body stiffened when she heard that, and the anger in her heart dissipated like a spring breeze. The thought of using force almost instantly disappeared. She had forgotten the difference in strength between them because of her anger. That's right, in front of the great demon king Dustless, the strength that she was so proud of was simply unbearable to look at. You still look down on me? Although she had given up the idea of using force, Veronica had no intention of stopping. She said furiously, I've changed my mind now, and I want to marry you. Veronica's words were like a super bomb. Dustless and Sylvia were blown up, and their brains couldn't wrap their heads around it for a moment. Chapter 58. Ferrito of Black was so angry that his roar shook the sky. If Keely was here at this moment, she definitely wouldn't mind tearing her into pieces and burning her bones to ashes. How did I raise such an ingrate? I should have killed her back then. Why aren't you doing it? Dustless provoked. If you don't do it, I'll cut you up and feed you to the fish. Leviathan of White's mouth twitched. He smiled but didn't say anything. If it was someone else, he would definitely snort. If it was Dustless, thinking of this, a part of his body started to hurt again. Dustless had tested a similar experience on him before. That was why Leviathan of White was so afraid of Dustless. If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Ferrito of Black roared again and again. The moment he finished speaking, it was as if a legendary god had spoken. The void suddenly dimmed. Dustless and Leviathan of White both looked at the sky subconsciously. Both of their expressions changed. In the depths of the sky, a huge meteorite suddenly appeared and smashed toward the two of them. He can even create meteorites. Even though he knew that Ferrito of Black was abnormally powerful, Leviathan of White's eyelids still twitched when he saw the huge meteorite. Isn't this too much of a freak? Oof. Are you scared out of your wits? Seeing Leviathan of White's shocked expression, Ferrito of Black was quite proud. He boasted, "In this world, the only thing that I have scruples about is the green dragon." Speaking of this, his eyes were filled with endless heroism. The green dragon was temporarily eliminated. Didn't it mean that the world was right in front of him? But the guy who can kill the green dragon, what kind of existence is he? Since when did such a person exist in this world? Ferrito of Black thought of the powerful existence that could kill the green dragon and suddenly had scruples in his heart. Because she had just been born, she didn't have time to investigate. So, at the meteorite, it does look good. Dustless also raised his head and looked at the huge meteorite falling from the sky. He said softly, "It's created using superior elements, right? This ability is so convenient. It can even create life. Not only the meteorite that covered the sky, but even Keely was created by Black Frito using superior elements. Just because it looks good, let alone a human like you. Even a dragon can easily destroy a giant meteorite like this." Black Ferrito raised his head and puffed out his chest as he spoke loudly and confidently. "You can't even withstand a single blow." Hearing this, Dustless curled his lips in disdain and mocked. "I don't have anything to say. You're just a frog in a well." With that, Dustless pointed at the void. Wong Su's flash. Boom, boom, boom. A huge beam of light shot toward the sky at an extremely fast speed. It disappeared the moment it left Dustless's hand. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A huge tremor came from the void, and the sky that had been darkened by the meteorites cleared up once again. Black Frito raised his head with a dumbfounded expression. The meteor that was a few kilometers in size had now turned into countless debris. Gulp! White Leviathan did not stop as he exclaimed, "Good, good, 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 good. It would be fine if it was just a small meteorite." Looking higher up in the sky, there was a huge, boundless black hole in the void. It was also created by the power of Void Flash. It was obvious that the power of the meteorite was only a small part of it. Impossible. After Black Frito recovered from his shock, he screamed in disbelief as he shook his head. This is definitely a trick. How can a mere human control this power that only gods can have? Trick? Puffed. Dustless could not help but laugh as he looked at Black Frito playfully. Are you here to be funny? You can even say something like a trick. Why don't you do one for me now? Black Frito looked at Dustless silently as a strange light flashed in his eyes. After a while, he said, "Are you interested in cooperating with me?" "No." Dustless rejected him straightforwardly. He had heard similar words countless times. There was no such thing as cooperating when the situation was not good. Moreover, Black Frito gave Dustless a very bad impression. This kind of guy should be eliminated as soon as possible. Cooperation was complete nonsense. "Don't be in a hurry to reject me." Black Frito smiled confidently and said temptingly, "If you and I work together, taking down this world is a piece of cake. How about we split it in half?" "That's it." Dustless looked even more disdainful. At the same time, he glanced at White Leviathan. This guy's expression was a little strange. White Leviathan had made the same condition in the past. "You idiot! Did you lose your mind from the shock just now? How can Master Dustless agree to such a ridiculous condition?" White Leviathan was the first to speak as he mocked. "Even if you give the whole world to Master Dustless, he will definitely not be moved." "That's right." Dustless nodded. That was indeed what he meant. If he wanted to conquer the world, he would have done it long ago. There was no need to go through so much trouble to cooperate with others. It was too superfluous. Therefore, no matter what nonsense Black Frito said, it was impossible in Dustless's eyes. Because no matter what, it meant that it was impossible. It's not that easy to conquer the world. Although Green Dragon is temporarily dead, he won't die at all. There was a trace of hatred in Black Frito's eyes. He seemed to have a lot of resentment towards Green Dragon. He said, "Only I know where his real body is hidden." there is such a thing as a real body? A strange light flashed in Dustless's eyes. The green dragon that he killed before was just an existence that was entrenched in the body of Yukimobe. He didn't expect that a real body would suddenly appear. Forget it, it's all the same. Dustless didn't care anymore. After dealing with Black Frito, he used Rinnegan's dojutsu to search this guy's head. If it's too simple, the power of Green Dragon is not something you can imagine. Black Frito shouted coldly because Dustless didn't take Green Dragon seriously. If I can kill him once, I can kill him a second time. What's so difficult about that? Dustless didn't take it to heart, but after he said that, the way Black Fletcher looked at him immediately changed. You mean, you killed a green dragon before? Black Frito's voice was choked. He looked quite shocked, and his eyes were wide open. In this world, besides Master Dustless, who else could it be? White Leviathan took the opportunity to flatter. As long as there was a chance, he wouldn't let it go easily. Damn it, no wonder he's so strong. Black Frito took a deep breath. He thought it was just a small fish, but he didn't expect to kick an iron plate this time. I just killed him along the way, Dustless said calmly. It was really like that. If Green Dragon didn't take the initiative to jump up, Dustless would never find trouble with Green Dragon. In the end, it was the other party who was looking for trouble. It couldn't be blamed on him. Don't tell me you're scared. Noticing that Black Frito suddenly became silent, the disdain on White Leviathan's face was even more obvious. He mocked, "You idiot, where did your confidence go?" This sentence suddenly poked Black Frito's sore spot. He snorted and didn't reply. Instead, he stared at Dustless faintly. It wasn't hard to see that Black Frito was completely terrified at this moment. If she knew that the culprit who killed Green Dragon was Dustless, she wouldn't dare to provoke him even if she was beaten to death, because the difference in strength between them was like heaven and earth. One had to understand that Green Dragon was Black Frito's natural enemy, and Dustless killed her natural enemy. One could imagine how terrifying his strength was just by thinking about it. There was dead silence between heaven and earth. It was so quiet that it was a little depressing. Hee, you deserve it. Let's see what you're going to do. On the other side, White Leviathan raised the corner of his scary mouth, and his head revealed a gloating smile. This bastard, he used to bully me because he was strong. Now he's stupid, right? Did he kick an iron plate? This bastard who was watching the show, he didn't even remind me. He must have done it on purpose. He wants to kill Green Dragon with a borrowed knife. Does he want to kill Green Dragon with a borrowed knife? Black Frito was so angry that his ferocious face twitched. You're also very scheming. Dustless's gaze suddenly fell on White Leviathan, and he said directly, "I've killed him. There's nothing in this world that can stop you, right?" Dustless suddenly remembered the words of the dean of the academy. No matter what kind of dragon it was, they all had the ambition to rule the world. They all saw their own kind as a thorn in their side and a thorn in their flesh. Since Black Dragon wanted to kill White Leviathan, why would White Leviathan not want to borrow Dustless's hands to kill Black Dragon? In this way, there would be nothing that could stop him from occupying the world. I wouldn't dare. White Leviathan was not stupid. Naturally, he could hear the implied meaning in Dustless's words. He quickly denied and admitted his mistake. If this big boss saw any clues, he would definitely kill him too. Unfortunately, there's no place in this world where you can have a foothold. Dustless looked at White Leviathan and said directly, "I've already given the ruling rights of this world to Grey Dragon. You're on your own in the future." Hearing this, White Leviathan's huge body stiffened slightly, and the air froze for a moment. Grey Dragon was an independent and special existence. Although he was a dragon, he lived in the form of a human, just like how Loki did not recognize him as a dragon at all. Everything that happened before was a misunderstanding, Black Frito said awkwardly. His dragon eyes stared at Dustless, and his tone was apologetic. He said faintly, "I don't plan to be your enemy. Is that so?" "I'm sorry." Dustless's tone was cold, and he said impolitely, "I plan to be your enemy." Previously, Keely had asked Dustless to kill Black Frito. It would have been fine if he hadn't met him. Now that this guy was right in front of him, how could Dustless just watch Black Fredo leave? No way. If he let this guy go, it would be hard to explain to Keely. I'm giving you face, but you don't want it. You don't know what's good for you. Black Fredo's eyes were spitting fire, and her eye sockets were about to burst. She felt that she had already given enough face to Dustless. She had even addressed him as you, but this guy still wouldn't let her go. Why? Black Fredo and Dustless didn't have any grudges. At most, we'll fight to the death. Black Fredo kept roaring, and his body was emitting a biting cold aura and madness of perishing together. However, this guy still didn't dare to make a move. It could be seen that he was just talking nonsense. Are you afraid of death? Dustless sneered and said with disdain, since you're not moving, then I'm coming, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, Dustless turned into a beam of light and shot out. In an instant, he disappeared from Black Fredo's sight. This freak, how can a human have this kind of power? He's so fast. Black Fredo's eyes were twitching wildly, and she couldn't stop blinking. Dustless's speed was so fast that she couldn't see him clearly with her naked eyes. Idiot, I'm behind you. A teasing voice came from behind. Black Fredo's big eyes were open to the maximum extent, and they were about to fall out of his eye sockets. In front of his line of sight, a Dustless suddenly appeared. That's just a shadow clone used to confuse you. As soon as Dustless finished speaking, there were a few bang 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 sounds. In Black Fredo's eyes, Dustless turned into a piece of wood. Lightspeed kick. A pure, golden, shining foot fell down like Mount Tai, and the position was exactly on top of Black Fredo's head. Boom! Black Fredo spat out a big mouthful of blood on the spot. Under this huge force, his body was blasted vertically into the ocean. Splash! There were huge waves on the ocean, and a large amount of seawater surged in all directions. As expected of Dustless, Sama, even if the opponent is the Black Dragon, it's not at all an opponent of the same level. The students of Midgard Academy, who came by boat in the distance, were surprised. When they saw Black Fredo being kicked into the sea, they all grinned and chuckled. The most obvious one was Keely. Her eyes narrowed into two lines. Even though Black Fredo had created her, he had abandoned her just because she failed a certain mission. He was extremely heartless. He shouldn't be so fragile. I still want to play more. That kick didn't scare me to death. As Wu Chen looked at the calm sea surface that was deathly silent, he thought to himself, he shouldn't have really died, right? His skin shouldn't be that brittle. After a few minutes, Black Fredo, who was kicked into the deep sea, still didn't move, as if he was dead. Still playing dead, Dustless released his observation hockey, and the sea area within a radius of tens of kilometers was included in his perception. Found it. His lightly closed eyes suddenly opened. Wu Chan looked into the distance with a soul-sucking light floating in his eyes. You don't know the difference between life and death. Do you feel sad that I didn't cut you into 8 pieces? Whiz, whiz, whiz. Without saying a word, Dustless once again turned into a light and swooped out, leaving a straight golden line in the sky. That guy seems to be crazy. White Leviathan was stunned, and his eyes followed the place where Dustless disappeared, and a small cruise ship appeared in front of him. Black Fredo knew that the gap between him and Dustless was too big, so he decisively chose other opponents. The target was the people of Midgard Academy. Compared with Dustless, this group of people was simply a soft lamb. Plop! The sea near the cruise ship exploded, and waves of tens of meters high rushed into the sky, and the sea began to shake violently. All this happened so suddenly that the moment the sea hit the cruise ship, it almost overturned it. What's the situation? These naive little girls all cried out in fear. Many of them even fell down, their noses bruised and their faces swollen. Someone attacked us. Be careful. The dean showed a dignified look and ran to the deck to look at the sea under the deep sea. In a trance, he saw a fast-moving black shadow. This shameless guy, he can't beat Dustless, so he came to bully the weak? The dean clenched his fists and scolded Black Fredo for being shameless and despicable. Although he didn't see the real murderer, Who else could it be except for Black Fredo? Bang, bang, bang. The blue sea exploded again, and the water column rushed to the sky, and a dark figure flew out with the waves. I'm shameless? Isn't that guy shameless? Isn't he bullying the weak? Black Fredo's voice was extremely hoarse, and his eyes were red, full of great resentment. Looking around, he didn't look as majestic as before. First of all, the pair of black wings had been burned to ashes by the Tensho. Secondly, he was kicked by Dustless just now. Black Fredo's head was caved in, and the footprint was particularly obvious. Even without his wings, Black Fredo used his own strength to step on the sea with his hind legs. Chapter 59. How could he resist such a powerful attack with just a finger? Are we all living in a telepathic world? The hearts of all the spectators were filled with doubts as they looked at Wu Chen's tender body. He was not tall, and his body was not strong. However, under such an ordinary body, there was an absolute power hidden. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The black blade pierced through Artie's body and cut him into 8 pieces effortlessly. His limbs and the metal wings on his back were all shredded into pieces. Bang! Artie's body parts fell to the ground. His giant arm was so heavy that it created a deep hole in the ground. How did he cut through such a thick armor? Is he even human? The audience was stunned. They looked at Artie's body parts on ground. Artie's armor was as thick as an arm, but it was still cut into pieces by the black coffin. Many people were so shocked that they started to doubt their lives. Bang! 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 Artie's body parts fell to the ground one after another. His tall and mighty figure collapsed, and there was a pile of stone-sized debris on the ground. I lost. Artie's head was not destroyed. He could still talk, but his voice was full of disappointment. It seems that I'm not strong enough. Dustless was not happy or sad, nor did he have the pride of a victor. He said coldly, "You're wrong. It's not that you're not strong enough. In fact, you're already very strong. Your only fatal mistake is that you chose the wrong opponent." Dustless said nothing. A high-density energy ball jumped out of his hand. Boom, boom, boom. Artie's body parts were blasted into pieces. The fire burned everything, and his body was completely destroyed. Do you want to surrender, or do you want me to do it? Dustless stared at Rimsey calmly. She didn't flinch and looked at Camilla and Inesta. As a shape-shifted being, she wouldn't be afraid and would go through fire and water with a simple command. We've lost. Inesta lowered her head, dejected. I admit defeat. Rimsey destroyed her school badge. The competition is over. Contestant Dustless from Starguide Academy and contestant Yuli's won this competition. This was a very exciting competition. The commentator's excited voice echoed in everyone's ears. Although Artie had been destroyed, which was the same as being killed, no one would care about his life, since he was just an impersonation. To put it bluntly, it was just a bunch of data. After the end of the competition, Dustless and Yuli's had undoubtedly become stars. They were like stars surrounding the moon. Next was the last competition, and the contestant they were about to face was the strongest witch in history, Alphalia. When they returned, Dustless and the others were not happy at all, even though they had won the competition. What? Flora is missing? Who did it? After returning to the lounge, Ulysses looked at Claudia and the others as if she had been struck by lightning. It seems that some things are unavoidable. No matter what, they will still happen. Wu Chun rubbed his temples with a headache and asked, "Are there any clues?" "It's Tian Wuyao," Claudia explained. "I received a call from her earlier. She wants to fight to the death with you. If you refuse, she will kill the hostage." What a rascal. Ulysses' beautiful eyes spewed out scorching flames. All right, since she took the initiative to come to me, I don't need to look for her. Dustless agreed readily. Actually, that woman is not bad. Unfortunately, she has a brother complex. I killed Tian Wuyao, so we are destined to be enemies. Dustless sighed and said with a regretful tone. At the same time, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Since she is an enemy, I can't do anything about it. I will be in charge of contacting her. Claudia turned and left, leaving only Dustless and Ulysses in the lounge. Don't worry, Tian Wuyao is not the kind of terrorist who would kill innocent people. Otherwise, she would have killed Flora long ago. Dustless stroked Ulysses' pink hair that hung down to her waist. He patted the young girl's shoulder and comforted, "I can guarantee this." Frankly speaking, even if there was a problem, there was still the outer Tao, reincarnation of heaven, to revive. About 30 minutes later, Claudia returned. The time of the battle to the death was set for tonight. That woman couldn't wait to take Dustless's head. In the evening, the sky was cold. According to the appointed location, Dustless came to a deserted area. There were all kinds of damaged buildings all around. After being washed by the rain, they were full of cracks. Looking around, there wasn't a single person within a few hundred meters. She really picked a good location. I almost got lost. Dustless stood on an abandoned building. The night was pitch black, and he couldn't see anything clearly. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A chill suddenly surged behind his back. Dustless immediately felt as if he had fallen into an icy hell. He turned his head slightly and saw a figure flickering in the darkness. As someone who had experienced hundreds of battles, he knew that this was the purest killing intent. "Where is Flora?" Dustless looked at the face of the black figure and asked. "I released her long ago. My target is you." The young girl's voice was as cold as ice. She held a sharp katana in her hand, and her whole body was emitting a threatening aura. "Is that so? Actually, you don't need to capture people to threaten me. As long as you challenge me to a battle, I will come out." Dustless's eyes instantly turned scarlet. "Actually, I am the same as you. I don't intend to let you go." After saying that, Dustless released a huge amount of killing intent and pounced on Tian Wuyao like a storm. This woman had a brother complex, and it was a fact that he had killed Tian Wuyao. There was no way for the two of them to bury the hatchet. He could only ruthlessly destroy this flower. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 tips plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 60. Is it uncomfortable for me to hug you? You're running a fever. After walking for a while, Dustless could not help but ask. Shifeng's entire body was burning, and her red face made her feel like she was on fire. No, no. Shifeng shook her head repeatedly. Her heartbeat sped up when she heard Dustless's words. After thinking about it, Shifeng could only take the initiative to change the topic. Otherwise, it would be too awkward. She said, "Teacher Dustless, what do you plan to do with Lucy and Winnie May?" "Actually, I don't have any ill intentions toward them. I don't intend to use or tame them. To be honest, they're too weak. They're not qualified to be my subordinates." Dustless's words shocked Shifeng. He actually said that the legendary level Pandora was not qualified to be his subordinate. That was too arrogant. However, judging from the strength Dustless had displayed, there was no need for him to take in his subordinates. He represented the strongest. Why would he need subordinates? "Teacher, what's the meaning of holding them captive? Are you planning to hand them over to Sulier for research?" Shifeng asked nervously. She had once been AOI Django's test subject. She knew better than anyone how it felt to be used as a lab rat. It was a desperate life where one could neither live nor die. Upon hearing that, Dustless stopped in his tracks. He extended his finger and tapped Shifeng's forehead. Then, he touched his cheek and muttered to himself, "Do I look like a scumbag who betrays others? I'm obviously very handsome." Shifeng felt a little embarrassed when she heard Dustless's words. She gritted her teeth and said, "No matter what, Lucy and the others used to be my sisters. I hope they can live peacefully under the sun in the future." Of course, that's not a problem. Dustless agreed readily. At the same time, he revealed his ultimate goal. "I do want to study legendary level Pandora, but I won't hand them over to Sulier. You should have heard of Scarlet O'Hara, right? About a few years ago, after she fell out with Aoi Django, she became one of my people. Now, she's helping me study the secrets of legendary level Pandora in Alaska." With Lucy and the others ready-made legendary level Pandora, with O'Hara's level, he might succeed in his research in the near future. Teacher Dustless, are you planning to imitate Aoki Jingo and use Pandora's power to strengthen yourself and rule over humans? Shifeng asked as his golden eyes stared into Dustless's eyes. People say that the eyes are the windows to the soul. Once you lie, you will appear unnatural and weak. However, after staring at Dustless for dozens of seconds, his deep black eyes were still calm and indifferent. He didn't show any signs of stage fright and just stared straight at Shifeng. Instead, she was the first to admit defeat. Being hugged by Dustless, Zivon could even feel the warm breath from Dustless's mouth on her face. As a result, her pretty face blushed once again. Ruling the world? What a boring thing to do. After a while, Dustless finally spoke as he stared at the blue sky in the distance. Actually, it might not be a good thing for a person to stand at the peak of the world. After a long time, it will be lonely. The feeling of being at the top is really boring. You don't even have an opponent. Every day feels like a year. Just thinking about it makes me bored. I understand. Sorry, I didn't understand Dustless's ambition. Shifeng lowered her head apologetically. Dustless's disdainful look was definitely not a lie. He was annoyed from the bottom of his heart. In fact, it could be described in one sentence. Being invincible was so lonely. When you stand at the peak alone and all your opponents have been trampled to death, what's the point of walking alone in the clouds? Therefore, all along, Dustless was not interested in ruling the world. It was more interesting to play in the human world. After chatting with Shifeng for a while, the two of them unknowingly walked into an underground laboratory. It was a place where Jingo Aoi was hiding. They also found the wanderers of Yujin who were about to starve to death. They were very miserable. There were only skin and bones left. Perhaps they would starve to death after waiting for a night. Am I one step too late? In one of Jingo Aoi's laboratories, Dustless stood in front of two containers. There was still liquid on the ground that had not dried up. Not long ago, the people inside suddenly woke up, broke the containers, and left. Cassandra and Tesla. Dustless muttered the names of the last two legendary Pandora. The people sleeping in these two containers were probably the two of them. He didn't encounter the two women in the previous battle. So, Wuchan thought that they were still in deep sleep. Now, it seemed that they had woken up. Moreover, they had quietly left. It was estimated that the two women had also gone to find Wuchan for revenge. Especially Cassandra. She probably hated Dustless. Kanzuya Aoi had an unusual relationship with her. That guy was crippled by Dustless and became the world's #1 eunuch. He was even sent to a mental hospital. Cassandra must hate Dustless to death. After about half an hour, Dustless, who did not find anything, chose to leave. Before he left, he did not forget to set fire to the underground laboratory. It was too cruel. There were many human experiments, and even newborn babies were used for human experiments by Jingo Aoi. It was said that it was for the sake of mankind. In fact, it was just to create more terrifying weapons. Therefore, when Dustless left, he directly used Great Fire Annihilation to burn everything. It could be considered to have ended Jingo Aoi's evil life. Are Cassandra and Tesla okay? Shifeng looked at Dustless worriedly. His face was haggard and weak. Wendy May and Lucy's soul reserves were at the level of 100,000, while Cassandra and Tesla's soul reserves were at the level of 1,000,000. It was self-evident what this meant. The difference was obvious. Chapter 61. Black Zetsu looked at Madara with a determined face. He hoped that Madara would change his mind and give up Dustless Uchiha. After all, it's about the plan to resurrect Kagaya. Thousands of years of planning, Black Zetsu didn't dare to be careless. As the saying goes, a single mistake can lead to the failure of the entire plan. Even the most careful loophole can lead to the failure of the entire plan, not to mention the replacement of Uchiha Bido with Uchiha Wuchin. The impact is even more fatal. After waiting for thousands of years, the plan will succeed. How can Black Zetsu let Dustless, such a little devil, mess up his plan? Madara-sama, that kid's pursuit of power has reached the point of madness. Once he gathers the 9-tailed beasts, Black Zetsu was silent and just looked at Madara. It's impossible for Madara not to understand such a simple meaning. Manjikyu Sharingan is not an ordinary Tomo Sharingan. To a certain extent, it can see the content of the steel of the Uchiha family's Naka shrine. It's inevitable that Dustless will do something crazy. Hearing this, Madara's brows couldn't help but frown. His eyes flashed with hesitation, and he began to hesitate. He's just cultivating a pawn to resurrect himself, not cultivating an enemy who will compete with him for the Jubi. According to what Black Zetsu said, it's not very likely that Dustless will definitely have the idea of the Jubi, and, as Black Zetsu said, Manjikyu Sharingan can already see the content of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. If Dustless obtains the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, he can see the content of the Rinnegan. That guy has no direct descendants for the time being. His parents are ordinary 3 Tomo Sharingan, and according to the number of times he uses his eyes are not far from self-sealing. White Zetsu said, according to the form of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, at least in the future, Dustless can't open the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, let alone the legendary Rinnegan. Humph, that little devil will never be able to open his Rinnegan. Black Zetsu sneered again and again in his heart. The conditions for opening the Rinnegan were extremely harsh. One must be Indra's reincarnator. This alone closed the door to all the Uchiha clansmen, and it also required the body cells of Azura's reincarnation to be fused. And it's not certain when he will be able to awaken the Rinnegan, because Madara is close to dying of old age. Is that so? In other words, Uchiha Dustless is almost blind, and there is no suitable Sharingan to transplant. Uchiha Madara's sunken eyes suddenly swelled, and he looked particularly scary. It's better to bring in Uchiha Obito and Uchiha Dustless. Let them work together and monitor each other. White Zetsu looked at Madara's gloomy face and carefully suggested, "Let me go. It's good to notice this." Hearing this, Black Zetsu was furious, and his anger burned all his reason. When he was about to scold White Zetsu, Madara agreed with White Zetsu's proposal and felt that the plan was feasible. Madara-sama, this is not good, is it? Black Zetsu's mouth twitched, and he suppressed the anger in his heart. He said to Madara, "If you change the plan like this, unexpected things may happen, and it is not impossible for the entire Eye of the Moon plan to collapse." Black Zetsu looked at Madara seriously, and his tone was filled with endless sadness. "Don't worry." Madara looked at Black Zetsu in surprise, and doubts emerged in his heart. Usually, Black Zetsu was obedient to his orders. Today, he always blocked Dustless intentionally or unintentionally. However, although he was confused, Madara didn't think much about it, because he always regarded Black Zetsu as the incarnation of his will, and he never suspected that Black Zetsu had other motives. The so-called plan is the prototype of my resurrection. There's a saying that the world is changeable, and the plan can't keep up with the changes. There is no such thing as an airtight plan designed by human beings. Any plan would have a loophole that no one knew about. Moreover, no matter who set it up, there would always be loopholes. This was something that Madara could accept. He was a human, not a god. It was impossible for him to take care of everything. Uchiha Dustless and Uchiha Obito are the ones who perfect the loopholes in his plan. The reason why he chose Dustless and Obito is that they can restrain each other. Even if Dustless really wants to attack the Bijou, Obito will not easily leave it to him. Uchiha Dustless, just a little bit of gravel. It's hard to compare with me. Madara's dry mouth raised a domineering smile, and his face was full of contempt and disdain. For him, who had opened the Rinnegan, not to mention Uchiha Wuchen, who was only a half-baked Mangekyo Sharingan, he hadn't even opened the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, and even Hashirama wasn't his opponent. After all, the Rinnegan is above the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. It can create and destroy the world. It is the power of the 6 paths, and its power is much more powerful than the eternal Manjiki Sharingan. Black Zetsu opened his mouth, but he chose to be silent. He was depressed. Dustless was not in his script, and now his plan several years ago is bound to change. He was sure that Obito would not be out of his control. After all, he has been secretly watching Obito for many years, and he knows where his weakness is. As long as he follows the vine to the melon, he can successfully make Obito fall into the darkness. But Dustless is fundamentally different. According to the current evidence, Uchiha Dustless is a self-centered person, and he will not be shaken by anything. Even if his parents are killed in front of him, for Uchiha Dustless, he will not be shaken. It seems that I can only let nature take its course, he sighed silently. Although Black Zetsu is the kind of person who doesn't believe in fate, but in the current situation, he can only watch Madara's practice. As the incarnation of Madara's will, it is impossible for him to disobey Madara. Black Zetsu said that Wu-chun was really a headache. However, Madara had already nodded to pull Wu-chun into the team, and he was determined. What he had to do was to do everything possible to bring Wu-chun in. This made Black Zetsu more uncomfortable than eating 10 pounds of flies. His stomach was churning, and he almost vomited. It was particularly uncomfortable. Chapter 62. Time flew by like a white steed. Unknowingly, a week had passed. Although it was only a week, a lot of things happened. The most sensational thing that happened during this period was the death of the Cloud's Raikage by tens of thousands of Rock's ninjas. The death of a village's Kage caused an unprecedented sensation. It was like a rock falling into the calm water, suddenly causing a huge wave. The third Tsuchikage's son, Kitsuchi, led tens of thousands of Rock's ninjas to kill the Raikage. This news raged around the world like a hurricane, making the Third Shinobi World War even more suspenseful. So all the shinobi villages were waiting for the Cloud's next move. The daimyo of the Land of Thunder also declared war on the Land of Earth and vowed to make the Rock Hidden Village pay the price. However, the Cloud Hidden Village's ninjas were still hiding in the village and completely ignored the daimyo's orders. The war against the Earth Country was inevitable, but the premise was that the new Raikage must be chosen. So in a short time, the Cloud had no military force to attack the Rock Village. Konoha was defeated by the Earth Country, and then the third Raikage was killed by the Rock Village. For a while, the entire shinobi world was in awe of the Rock Village. Some of the smaller countries that were hesitant to join the Rock Village, which made Inoki's life extremely good these days. But that wasn't the case. In the tent, the atmosphere was oppressive and heavy. Inoki was looking at the information in his hand gloomily, and his old face changed dramatically. He was panting, and his face was extremely gloomy, and he was about to go berserk. Tsuchikage-san, the Gobi's Jinchuriki carefully looked at Inoki's face and couldn't help but feel numb. Looking at Inoki's angry face, he knew that the information in his hand must be about the defeat of the Rock Hidden Village, or the defeat treaty that the Cloud Hidden Village ordered the Rock Hidden Village to sign. Otherwise, Inoki wouldn't be so angry. This old man cherishes life very much. Otherwise, he wouldn't be alive now. That damn muscular man is really not an ordinary person. Chakra surged, and the information in his hand was shattered into pieces. The muscular man he was talking about was naturally the Cloud's Raikage, facing the attack of tens of thousands of Rock's ninjas. He could last for 3 days and 3 nights. Speaking of this, Inoki took a deep breath. Although the Raikage wasn't that old, he was in his 40s or 50s. What made Inoki speechless the most was that the old guy was not killed, but died of exhaustion. In other words, if he still had physical strength and chakra, he would have been able to fight without any restrictions. Look, Inoki scolded, and his expression became gloomier. It's good to kill the Raikage, but the loss of the Rock Village was also terrible. More than 2,000 ninjas were killed. Fortunately, the Raikage is dead, suppressing the anger in his heart. Inoki also calmed down, and then began to smile again. Looking at the map on the table, The small earth-colored flag almost occupied the entire map. Staring at the small red flag that had been swallowed up in front of him, Inoki's mouth raised into a sneer. That was Konoha's ninjas. We must quickly deal with Konoha. Soon, the cloud's ninjas will attack us. Frowning, Inoki said worriedly, and a hint of viciousness flashed in his eyes. He naturally understood the simple truth that a great man must be ruthless, and a small man must not be a gentleman. If they don't clean up Konoha's ninjas in time, facing the cloud's attack, the rock's ninjas might really be destroyed. But after the Sannin came 3 days ago, they have stabilized the situation. We have no advantage at all. The Yanbi's Jinchuriki looked at Inoki coldly, and his words were full of sarcasm and dissatisfaction. Everyone knew that he had a bad relationship with Inoki. Old Rashi looked at him coldly. He was against attacking the Raikage from the beginning, because it was useless to be arrogant, and it would bring disaster to the village. Especially since the Cloud Village also has 2 Jinchuriki, and the whole country is full of fighting faction. It's useless for you to say this now. Inoki also stared at Old Purple coldly, with a fierce look on his face, and then rolled his eyes, showing the look of a dead pig not afraid of boiling water. Obviously, he was saying that he was the Tsuchikage. If you don't agree, then bite me. You. Seeing Inoki's attitude, Old Purple was furious. His breath was filled with sparks. It was obvious that he was on the verge of turning black. Don't be angry. Don't forget that Konoha is still watching us. The Gobi's Jinchuriki smiled bitterly. The relationship between Inoki and Old Rashi was like this. Both of them didn't like each other. Perhaps if he wasn't there, they would have already fought. Old Purple was a straightforward person, and he could not tolerate sand in his eyes. Inoki, on the other hand, liked to play tricks. Naturally, the two of them had different opinions and views. We must get rid of Konoha's ninjas. Old Rashi's eyes were cold, and he was murderous. This was a must. Even if the Sannin and Dustless arrived, Konoha's ninjas wouldn't be able to survive. Although Inoki was as stubborn as Old Rashi, they had the same idea. They must quickly get rid of Konoha and then return to the rock to prevent the cloud's revenge. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.